the lake.
We're recording now. Stop.
That's what it's Lakeway, Lake Travis.
Yeah,
They
right.
keep building the Bush addition, and it's so fun.
Yeah.
And they're still building. And we had
Yeah, and
great
some are born
into.
Yeah, it was funny. We were,
Love the kids.
Right.
And
they were building these homes around the lake there, and it was like, it wasn't in Killeen, but it was real close to Killeen. And I told the contractor, I said, well,
Yeah.
it looks to me like all you do is take a bulldozer and just pull them upstairs.
Everything's here, right?
You know.
Gary, we have Ron, Eric, Kathy, all of them. Eric's not on yet. There he is. He just showed up.
And that's the only folks from right now.
In the lake.
Payroll. Good morning. We're going to go ahead and get this started. The clock just hit 8:30 and we got a lot to cover. I want to say thanks to everybody for coming. I don't know why we don't have this kind of attendance at the budget meeting. I think we had 2 people in there. So I guess that's not as exciting, but I'm glad to see we have a lot of folks here. Did everybody, we got a sign-in sheet over there, agenda, I don't know, are there any other handouts over there, Joe? Did you put anything over there?
Just the
draft
of the financial
financials,
reports is up there.
So if
Everyone wants to-
y'all didn't pick them up and want to grab the handouts, feel free to do so. So I'm going to call this to order. We're going to go ahead and get started with the certification of quorum. Ron in the room. We have Boyd, Greg, myself, Rick, obviously Joe, and it looks like on the phone we have Eric, Ron, and Kathy. So I'll turn it over to you, Ron.
Okay, good morning. I can certify we do have a quorum.
All right, that was quick.
Also, want to verify the meeting was noticed properly by email and in the lobby of the Lodge building.
Okay, thanks, Ron. The first action is approval of the November 3rd budget meeting minutes. Ron, you want to go ahead and address that, make that motion?
Sure. The meeting minutes were compiled and sent out with no further comments or returns back, so I would like to make a motion that the meeting minutes are accepted.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Any discussion none from the board? Anybody in the room? Okay. We have a motion. We have a second. We'll go ahead and move for a vote. All approved?
Aye.
Hi.
Eric texted, voted yes.
Okay. All right, Ron. We got 6, and we just need you to chime in. Okay, so we've got that motion approved. 7 to nothing. Okay, a couple quick remarks. Again, I want to thank everybody for being here. As you may have noted, I've kind of backed the timing of the start of these meetings up because personally, I'm always up anyway, so I figured it's better to get started early. We're going to try to get through everything prior to lunch. Really want to kind of get through all of the discussion points. We do have quite a bit to cover today. I want to thank everybody that's online. How many people we have online?
You want names?
Outside of the board members? Yeah, go ahead and read them out.
Angela Rendis, Brian Fendry in 108, James Manzanares, Sandy Elliott is on, Wayne Alexander, Angela, and I'm not sure who Angela is. Might be Angela Green. Larry Mears, Bonnie Dudley.
Okay, so for those of you online, should you have questions or want something addressed,
Don Carter.
please feel free to send those messages across in the GoToMeeting process that we have. Quick reminder, we understand and want everybody to be able to chime in accordingly, and we'll have a lot of open discussion today on several topics. But let's keep it brief. let's, to the extent things have already been addressed, we don't need to, repeat things over and over again. Sometimes a lot of our topics drag on. So just keep that in mind. We have a lot of things to cover today. And I know, certainly we want to take the time to address everything appropriately, but I want to make sure we get through everything and get everybody out of here at a reasonable time. So we're going to start today with the financial reports.
Okay.
Gary?
Gary, can you put
Which one do we want?
it's the,
Draft financial?
that's it.
Okay.
And then there's paper copies up on the counter there if anybody wants to follow along that way. Gary will be putting it up here so you can see what I'm looking at.
Hang on one second.
Joe, you can send me copies later.
Yeah, I'll send you copies of everything, Ron.
Great, thanks.
Okay. Maybe I should shift around here so I can see this better. Make sure we're on the same page. All right, that's better. Okay, so the first page is the balance sheet. Just a couple of comments there. Everything looks really good. I'll speak to the reserves accounts when I do that report as part of this a little bit later. So we can talk about where our balances are and what we have. There still remains in account 106 a balance that remains left over from the lodge remodel that completed a couple years ago now. So there's $17,000 left over there. We want to spend that money in the lodge. I've asked in the past for some input on what we might do with that money. Didn't get a lot of feedback. Some, but what I think we're going to do, and I've talked to Dave Dunn about this, is when we do the elevator remodels, the electromechanical retrofits of the elevators. The central tower is one that's going to be done this year. We're going to do some upgrades in the carriages inside. They're looking kind of long in the tooth and heavy wood and stuff like that, and try to modernize those. So we're going to look to spend that money in those two elevator carriages, bring them up to 21st century look.
We have this like a display box or case or something.
That's something
right?
else we talked about putting
Yeah,
in there is
right.
some kind of a video display. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's where you could mark the different things. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was one of the things. Dave's going to get some estimates from the elevator company on with some options. We actually had an estimate. There were some options with the elevator, the overall remodel retrofit of the elevator electromechanical systems to do some things in the carriage as well. So we're just going to go back and resurrect those and look for updates on those estimates and see what we might want to do and use up this money. That's pretty much it. The balance sheet is pretty much self-explanatory. We're in good shape in terms of our cash positions and our assets. So Gary, if you want to go to the first page of the income statement. Okay. All right. So what we're reporting on here is year end through December 31st of last year. This is still marked as a draft because there may be some straggling payables that may come in and may change a little bit here, but this is pretty much what it's going to look like. And when it's finalized and approved by our accountant, it'll be posted on the website. So you'll be able to look at it there, and that should be within the next couple of weeks. Our revenues, all the 400 accounts, everything looks pretty good there. The assessment fees is pretty much right on budget. We We got a little bit more out of maintenance revenues this year than we had planned for. Pretty much everything else is in line. Service and collection fees, we got quite a bit more out of that. This is where when an owner becomes delinquent and we assess late fees and interest on the accounts. So there, we had a fair amount of that last year, but the good news is it's getting paid. And along with the penalty fees, the regular amounts are getting paid along with it. The Account 417 is something that the board is going to be discussing in executive session. It's a bill that was sent to an owner for some legal fees, and that'll be discussed in executive session. It's a personal matter. Transfer fees. This is reflective of quite a few closings on units. We had kind of a record year this year. We had 52 closings on 56 units. I don't think we ever had more than 50 closings in one year previous to this. So there's a $300 fee that's assessed on each closing, split between the buyer and the seller, and that's where that money comes from. The mailbox assessments is that's pretty much where it's going to be. Although we had some more money budgeted in, it's this is Gamble Oak finishing up on the mailbox program. Put a mailbox in for every unit on property, and that project is pretty much now complete. Rest of that looks pretty good, as you can see, but from the bottom line, we got a little bit more revenue than we had planned for, so we're in good shape there. Administrative expenses, pretty much right on budget all the way down the line there. Nothing really to comment on. Everything looks pretty close to where it's supposed to be. 600 accounts operations. Snow removal is something to comment on. We only spent just a little under $40,000 on snow removal last year. I think Dave, we're almost there this year already, aren't we? About 30,000, I think.
We're past that already.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the good news and the bad news. Last year we had virtually no snow, so we didn't spend a lot on snow removal. This year, Mother Nature is blessing us with a lot of snow, so we have to pay to move it out of the parking lots and off the decks and so forth. So we take the good with the bad there. Let's see. Fire sprinklers is way under budget, account 640. Reason for that is we have been planning year over year for what the fire department has been telling us, the authorities, county authorities have been telling us, local authorities have been telling us that they're going to start to do some more extreme testing, destructive testing on these fire sprinkler heads. They pull them out, take them back to a lab and subject them to destructive testing, basically trying to set them off and see what threshold they set off at. But that hasn't begun yet, even though we've been budgeting for it. It's an expensive proposition, but they haven't followed through and actually done that kind of testing yet. So we continue to budget for it and wait for it to happen. Account 644, parts charged to owners. This is kind of an offset on the maintenance revenue. Account 404 up there. This is where we buy parts and then we back bill them to owners when we do work in their units, replace things like the air conditioning and heating systems and things like that. We're actually going to remove this account. It's more of a nuisance than anything else, and we're going to just roll it all up into the maintenance account. So, building maintenance account.
Can you move from there, or do we need to make an announcement?
What's that?
Oh, I just seen if you could view from our side.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. Go to the next page, Gary. Okay. Energy management, energy monitoring and alarm systems. Some of our systems are older than others, and it's getting harder to get parts, and we're just having more problems with them, and so we're spending more money on keeping those systems going. We're managing, so it's costing a little bit more, but not too bad. 684 depreciation expense. This little baby shows up every year on the year-end report. I personally don't like it, but because it's a reduction or a depreciation in the value of our assets. It's not actually a cash outlay, but our accountants tell us that according to GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles, that you have to have it there. Otherwise, when your auditor looks at it, he starts asking why it's not there, and so there it is. And that's the annual 2018 depreciation on all of our assets. 600 accounts are salaries. That's pretty close to budget. It would have been at or over had we hired. We were short ahead in the maintenance department for a fairly good part of the year. We did hire that person, an IT trainee, Cody. You might know who Cody is. He's been working in landscaping while he's been getting his degree at Fort Lewis College. He's been working with the landscaping group, and we've kept him on, and we're training him up to be an IT person, and he's doing pretty well. So, let's see. Utilities. Electricity is, where am I at here? Electricity, 720, yeah. We're quite a ways under budget on electricity. We've struggled with trying to nail this down year over year with rate increases from LPEA, the changes in ownership of properties, especially the pool and fitness area, which is now totally owned and operated by Glacier. And we have now finally gotten the electricity division and metering set up so that instead of us estimating what they owe us for electricity, because we're paying on the meters that are over there, we have now, they've taken over the meters that control that area, that are feeding that area, and then the panels that are feeding multiple areas, we've added house meters on those, and so from this point going forward, we should have the electricity. They're paying for what they use, we're paying for what we use, and there's no crossover. Or if there is, it's so small, it's inconsequential. So our overall electric bills we're gonna see a decline, and we've budgeted that way for 2019. Internet, telephone, and TV service, 730, 40, and 60 down there. There's been some upheaval in that. We'll speak to that in a little while, but the monies, the actual expenses are over budget in those areas. However, that's budget neutral because when our costs go up, we immediately pass those on to the owners. So what we're paying, you're paying, and so there's no real effect on the budget itself. Look down to the bottom line there, net income. Yep, for the 46,938.55 number. As you can see, we budgeted for an actual loss that we would have made up for with carryover from 2017. However, we didn't have a loss this year. We actually ended up with a net gain of about almost $50,000. So from a cash flow standpoint, we're doing really well. Next page, Gary, capital. Just point out a couple of out-of-line items here. Count 805 bat mitigation. We've spent a lot of money on trying to chase bats out of this property over the past year or so. We budgeted $12,000. We spent almost $30,000. It was actually a little bit more than that because we had some money left over from the lodge exterior maintenance account. It's over in the operating side, and it was $5,000 or more out of that account that we had left over, and we needed some more money for bat mitigation. So we've actually spent close to $35,000 on bat mitigation. And probably, it looks like we're probably going to have to continue doing that to try to keep control of those little guys. Unfunded capital expenses, 830. You see the irrigation and the some work we had to do in the restaurant, some equipment repairs and replacement. That other $20,000 is $2,000 to rebuild a fire sprinkler pump here in the lodge. And then the big one was $18,500 to install a pressure reducing valve here in the lodge as well. We were depending on a pressure reducing valve that's in the road in the main line a little north of here, between here and High Point. And that's a Glacier owned piece of equipment, and they decided not to discontinue maintaining that. So in order to keep our water pressures from getting extreme, especially here in the lodge and in Pinecone, we had to put in this PRV, which is installed up there by behind the maintenance office. So overall, the capitals, we didn't spend anywhere near what we had planned to. Big reasons for that was the elevator project that was planned for this past year didn't happen because of some scheduling problems with the elevator company. So that money didn't get spent. $50,000 that was budgeted for landscaping improvements here at the lodge that was going to be done in conjunction with Glacier didn't happen. Probably in a large degree because of the fire last summer, and a lot of things got delayed. The construction of the Glacier was concentrating on trying to get the fitness facility and the pools opened up, so we didn't get to the landscaping. Hopefully we'll get to that this summer. And then the phone and the internet project that didn't happen, and again I'll be reporting on that in a little bit. So next page, Gary. This just gives you a snapshot of where we are with our reserves, how much we've contributed to reserves this year. Almost $118,000 was added to our reserves funds this year. So we're doing real well with keeping up with statutory requirements for having and building reserves as a homeowners association. And then the last page is the rental program. The rental program on the revenue side did a little better than it was expected last year, in spite of the fire and in spite of the fact that the pool and fitness facility didn't get open on time. They still got more revenue than they had planned for. And then on the income side, the expense side, there was a little bit less spending than was anticipated. So the net loss that was planned for of $14,000 and change was cut about in half. So the rental program did pretty good, and hopefully without a fire this year and everything up and running, that they'll do even better this year. And that's the financial reports. Gary, if you want to put the...
Are we done with this, Joe?
We're done with, unless anybody has a question on this. Any questions on the financial reports board?
Any board questions?
Anybody got a question out there?
Joe?
Yep, Eric, go ahead.
Go ahead, Eric.
I just might want to mention for the benefit of the audience that we did take some salary action in the rental program.
Yes, we did. That's right. We Heather came to us last summer and said, basically, if I don't give my people some raises, I'm going to lose them. She had lost one key person, and we did a quick salary survey of the area, and we found out that we were about $2 an hour low on salaries for front desk personnel. So we made some salary adjustments. We came to some agreements with Heather and basically increased the salaries. And even with that, we still did pretty well on that budget. So thanks, Eric. Yep. Anybody else got a question on?
Marketing, I noticed, is double the budget. Can you tell me what we spent that money on?
Yeah. Scott, you want to?
That's Ann?
Yeah. Contract we have with Ann Dixon.
Yeah, we, and this was mentioned in previous meetings, but, because I know Ann did a report. I don't think she did in November. I think she did it in September. But we contracted with Ann last year to work with Heather to get our website updated, to ensure that that website was up to speed. We had to do an upgrade with LiveRes, which is the system that we actually owned. Taco owns the reservation system. So we had to do an upgrade to that. We contracted with Ann to assist with that. We brought in some third parties to help get our Google searches up higher. She's also built out Facebook pages and Instagram pages, and she has been doing social media blasts that I'll cover in a little bit here, dating back to probably July of last year. The idea was to bring more visibility to the amenities, obviously that were added last year, bring more visibility to the access to golf. In the end, to bring more visibility to Tamarron and the rental program and try to get more traffic in here. So that was a big part of the budget increase. Historically, we've had a very small marketing budget that Heather has maintained and mainly done print advertising in town. So the idea was to expand to more of an online presence, to make sure that we had a marketing strategy that was up to snuff with kind of the online environment that we all live in today. Printed materials in a Durango magazine that might randomly get picked up at the visitor center, we felt only went so far, and we wanted to try to explore doing something more. So we contracted with her last year to help with all the upgrades. We've contracted with her through this year as well to continue what she's been doing. Really what she does is she looks forward and posts activities going on in town to whether it's the bike race or whatever might be. She did a whole bunch of posts around the amount of snow we got, things like that. I'll share some of those here in a minute, but that's why the budget increase went wrong.
That will be reflective, I guess, in this coming budget.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, Jerry Q2 623. Are there any metrics on how well these various marketing things are?
I'll share that in a minute. Yeah. I mean, they're a dartboard, but we're trying to measure it.
Good.
Any other questions?
Any other questions
on that? Okay, I'm going to go back to the reserves that are in our assets in our current assets. So we have a number of reserve accounts now. Go to the next page, Gary. So as of the end of December, we had a total permanent reserve, $781,862. So a little over $750,000.
Joe, this is.
You got the wrong one.
I think this is what you sent me.
No.
Is it the end of December, Joe?
Did I send you the old one? I might have.
It's October.
That's what I've got.
I sent you the old one. See what happens when you try to do this?
See, you didn't get up early enough this morning.
Yeah. I got. Give me a second.
Here, Joe.
It's right there. Okay. Somebody's phone's buzzing.
Yeah, I'm gonna turn that off in a minute. You got it on mute. That didn't work too.
Got it yet? Yep, okay, now we go. Second page. All right, there we go.
Nope.
All right,
Wait a minute.
there we go. Okay. So as of December 31st, 2018, we have 781,862 in our permanent reserves. And out of that, this year only 60,000, 90,000 is allocated towards the elevator project, but then we're making more contribution to the reserve, so that will actually go up in principal and interest for during 2019. So we'll continue to build it. We have 3 different accounts now. We have an account in the Bank of the San Juans that now has $340,999 in it. And then we have 2 accounts with 2 sets of laddered CDs, one at First Internet Bank of Indiana, and then the other one, which has approximately $205,000 in it. And then the latest one that we opened was at Stearns Bank in St. Cloud, Minnesota. And both of these these banks do heavy internet banking, even though they're both, I'm not sure if First Internet Bank has any brick and mortar banks, but Stearns Bank does in the Midwest. And so we have 2 sets of laddered CDs. All of those CDs range in principal value from $25,000 to $30,000 each. There's 8 CDs at each bank, and they have varying interest rates in the neighborhood of 1 3/4 to 2.5%. And as the shorter term CDs mature, we are rolling those over into 24-month CDs. So the plan is at the end of a couple of years, actually First Internet Bank will reach that, those CDs will reach that plateau this year, where all 8 CDs will be 24-month CDs with varying maturity dates. So you get the yield and you get the liquidity both. So that's where we're at with that. Next slide, Gary. So what do we do with the $340,000 that we have at the Bank of San Juans? Because we're still over, after everything we've done, we're still over the FDIC insurance limit. And we've always said that we want to make sure that we're not exposed unnecessarily with our savings, which is important to us. So my recommendation is to move at least half, perhaps $200,000 of those reserves that are at the Bank of the San Juans into another internet bank, a bank that does internet for business. That's the kicker, because you have to find one that'll work with businesses and not just individuals, into a high yield savings account. Initial investigation in that tells me that we can probably find something in the neighborhood of anywhere between 1 3/4 to 2.25% on a high yield liquid savings account. Banks that I've looked at are American Express Bank, TD Bank, but that's, we'll continue the research on that and come up with it if the board approves this plan. Secondly, at that point, we'll have about $140,000 left at the Bank of the San Juans. I discussed this with Sandy Elliott, our accountant, last week, and she agrees that at that point there would be no reason to keep an account at the Bank of the San Juans. Move that balance back to Alpine Bank, where we have all of our operating accounts and a capital account, and then keep that money in a separate reserve account at that bank. So then our reserves would be in 4 different banks, and it would all be spread out so that the federal insurance limits were not exceeded. Now at Alpine Bank, time to time, because of cash flows, we could exceed that balance, but not by a lot. So our exposure would be low. So that's what I'm proposing that we do. And if the board wants to consider making a motion on that so we can move forward on that, I would recommend making a motion to do that.
Did you, I know I sent you some contact info for Amagi.
Yep, I contacted Amagi. They're another one. They're
Okay.
another one. Yeah. As a matter of fact, I don't know. Amagi Bank is a bank in Texas. I don't think they have anything outside of Texas.
No, so Amagi Bank is owned by Zions Bank.
Yeah.
Zions Bank is a conglomeration of 5 or 6 banks. Amagi happens to be one of them.
Well, the guy that founded Amagi Bank is Walter Johnson. Really nice guy. He's a Glacier Club member, and he. I think they have, how many branches do they have now? Like 60.
I got no idea. I mean,
Yeah.
they're
Couple
They're
thousand
heavily,
employees. He and his wife started
a big Texas bank.
It's a big Texas bank. It started out as a mom and pop thing. So anyway, he called me and he said, oh, I heard you contacted our.
Oh, did he?
Yeah. So, yeah.
Okay. Well,
So they would be somebody to consider as well. Yeah.
All right. Any questions from the board of?
Just one.
Yeah. Is that Eric?
Yeah, that's Eric. One observation. I think Joe mentioned that we have a ladder of 200,000, and then we have a ladder of 240,000. Is there any way we can make those both about?
He's telling me he's breaking up. You're breaking up. You're modulating somehow, Eric, and we're not understanding what you're saying. But I think what you said was, is there any way we can even out those accounts?
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, we could. I don't see either one of those. I mean, we invested $200,000 initially in First Internet Bank of Indiana, and that's with interest over almost 2 years. That's up to about $205,000 now. So it's a slow process getting it to the point where it might exceed the $250,000 threshold, and even if it does, it's limited exposure because you're only exposed to the amount that's over the $250,000. So I guess it could be done. I'm not sure it's necessary right now.
Well, my question would be also, we've got 341 in that account now, right? And
In the Bank of the San Juan's account.
Yeah. Is 200,000? I mean, is that 141,000 sufficient? Liquid reserves for us?
Well, no, we'd still have 340,000 in liquid reserves.
Oh, I thought that's where it's coming out of, the 200 that you're suggesting. Right?
No,
Because this would move,
the laddered CDs stay where they are.
right.
That's that amount is.
You're just moving it to a
400
sales account.
444,000.
To a savings account.
It's the amount that's remaining now in the Bank of the San Juan.
Okay, no, I
See,
got
we
it.
used to have all of our reserves
Right, I
in the
know.
Bank of the San Juan, and it just got too big.
Okay.
And we said we need to do something about this. So it's the amount that's in the Bank of the San Juans, which is now liquid, and with this plan would continue to be liquid.
Yeah,
it would just be moved into different
I thought we were
banks.
going to be moving it into a CD. Not that.
No, not a CD, no
Okay,
CDs.
I got you.
Yeah, like a high yield money market savings account.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other discussion from the board? Before we make a motion, any discussion from the?
Well, you can make the motion, then you can have discussion.
Well, we can do, okay. Anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay. What's the motion? Ron's going to have to capture it.
That, we would take the suggestion of Joe in terms of where and how we would move those dollars into set accounts.
Just like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can be the motion right there.
You just read
Did you
that.
get that, Ron? Hey, Ron, here's the motion. We're going to move. We're making a motion to move at least half, approximately $200,000 of the reserves on deposit at Bank of the San Juans to an Internet Bank high yield savings account. That's the motion. And we can send you the report so that you have the exact language that
He'll get all
Joe
that.
has. Yeah.
Yeah, and he can.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second this, Boyd.
Okay. All right. Any discussion on that from the board? I think we already covered that. Okay. Anybody in the audience have any comments? Questions? Okay. Having no discussion, we'll move for a vote. All in favor of the recommendation to move those funds into the savings account, say aye.
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 You hear from Ron and Eric?
Haven't heard yet.
Ron, Eric?
I'm sorry, yes.
Okay, there's Ron. Eric?
I mean, yes, well,
Okay, so that's 7-0, Ron.
Got it, thank you.
Okay, that's that report. I have one other piece of business. As you all know, the 2019 budget was all hard copy mail. So you should have received that. With that was information about how the budget process works in compliance with our own declarations and bylaws and Colorado statutes. And that being in the absence of a prescribed protest by owners at the meeting following the mailing of the annual budget, with no in the absence of any protest by the owners, the budget becomes automatically ratified. So I'd like to ask the board, does anybody have any knowledge of any protests being registered by any owners?
No.
Nope.
I would ask our owners here present if they're aware of or anyone, or they have a protest of the 2019 budget as submitted. Okay, hearing none, then I would just state that, and it doesn't take a motion. It's the 2019 budget is hereby ratified.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Hey, Ron, in case you didn't get the motion was made by Greg and the second by Boyd, okay?
Got it, thanks.
Okay.
And that's the financial reports.
Okay. All right, we're going to move on to some updates on rules and regulations. We have been in the process of revising both a code of conduct that has been brought up at several board meetings now, as well as address some changes that we realized we needed to make to the fines and appeals process. We found some language that needed to be updated in the notifications. So, Ron, do you want to address that, please?
Sure. All right, as part of our governance policy, we do maintain the ability to issue fines and warnings. Is there an echo, or is it just on my side?
Just on your side. We can hear you fine.
Bear with me. I'm hearing myself twice, and that's not good.
I get that.
So as part of issuing fines and warnings, we have obviously a policy to do that. The Rules and Regulations Committee is first made aware of the violation. They will research the violation, what happened, get information from the people who were involved, maybe some witnesses, the people that actually committed some type of violation will be interviewed as well. So we try to get as much information as we can. Then that information, they make a recommendation, they send that to me, and then I'll look through that information. I may call several people as well that had already been contacted. I may go to the board, get some other feedback, but we try to make this as transparent as we can, and again, getting as much information as we can, because obviously it's not a pleasant topic. It's one that we have to do, but we want to make sure we're doing it correctly. The change that we're looking at making is there is, as part of the policy, there is an appeals process. And what we're going to do is take that short section, and we're going to put that on the citation form. So if you receive a citation, you'll have that information there, and that should clear up some of the confusion as to can people make appeals for these decisions that were made, and how do they go about doing it, that type of thing. So they'll have it in writing on the citation form itself. I wanted to mention just a couple other quick things. Generally, I think we're reasonable, and in talking with other people, oftentimes some of the roughest crowds that I talk to are the owners themselves, and they hear some of the things that are going on. They're like, well, what, should have done this, or should maybe increase the fine or whatever. So it's interesting in talking with people, because obviously there are difference of opinions, and there are various options to take. But generally, when we do speak to the owners, I'm amazed that they're pretty tough, and I think most people want to have a nice community to live in, want to have a nice area, and so hopefully working together we can do that and maintain that as we've done. So again, we'll make that change, put that information on citation form, And then obviously if there's questions that anyone has about this, if you receive a fine of some type, certainly get a hold of me, and we'll walk the process and make sure that everyone understands what the current status is. Questions or comments?
So just for everyone's benefit, Ron, we're displaying the notice on the screen. So if you'll note, we reference the policy enforcement of covenants, rules, including notice and hearing procedures, et cetera, on the TACO website. Everybody receives those when they buy a property. Obviously, we've had a lot of property sales this year. Certainly, we expect people to read those notices, but we all know that that doesn't always happen. I will tell you that we try to be, I mean, this is kind of the unpleasant job of the board. A lot of times people don't realize some of the things that, you know, sticking a camera outside or having a gas grill, or they just don't realize that some of those things aren't allowed. So, you know, this typically starts with a warning. It's not just an automatic fine. We try to be reasonable. In the end, when fines get assessed, it's really to try to curb the behavior if they're not, you know, listening to the initial warnings that we give. So, again, it's not the most pleasant part of the job here, but it is something that we have a responsibility to do to maintain the, you know, the quality of life here at Tamarron. So, any questions from the board on this? I know we've had discussions going back and forth for a while. Any comments from the audience? Okay. I don't think we need to take action as far as some motion or anything on this, right? We're just updating the form to make sure we're in compliance.
Correct.
Right. Okay, and then Gary, will you put up the code of conduct? So I don't remember when we started this, but I want to say it was in the spring. We started to redraft the code of conduct.
Are you talking about the prohibited behavior?
Yeah, I'm sorry. So we have been going back and forth to determine the appropriate language that should be in code of conduct. Obviously, you know, what we're trying to establish here is we all have to live together. We all have to get along. We all have to treat each other with respect. We all have to make sure that we maintain that quality of life here. And it doesn't happen often, but we occasionally do have issues with that. So we have been attempting to come up with the appropriate language for this. We think we're at a point where we are comfortable with the language. We will ultimately post this language for comments, and then the way the procedure works is we have to post it for comments. If we get any comments, we'll certainly discuss those, and then we would have to vote to make this a permanent part of the process. We'd have to set up a special meeting of the board to adopt these rules or code of conduct. So, Ron, I'm going to let you walk through it, or Eric. I know you guys both were involved in it, but Ron, you want to take a stab at it, and then Eric, you can chime in.
Sure. And again, just want to echo several things that we've talked about before. This is similar to a vision statement or I guess a code of conduct that many companies have, organizations have, and it really is set up to just remind people of how we want to interact with others and how we want to treat people. And certainly when we have times of conflict or disagreement, this can be a challenge to maintain our behavior, but certainly that's what we want to do, and that's what we're looking at. So in developing this, we looked at several other vision statements, mission statements from companies and again, organizations, and try to get a balance for what we're looking for. So I won't read all this because it's a little bit lengthy, but obviously the first paragraph talks about the purpose of applying this code of conduct applies to basically everyone that is a TACO. So we can have a contractor come in, we could have obviously visitors and guests and owners and tenants, and but the draft policy that we're looking at now, again, would apply basically to everyone that has access or is involved with TACO operations. The board expects TACO owners to treat other members of the TACO community with courtesy and respect, and to refrain from behavior that is contrary to the TACO code of conduct. Such behaviors include but are not limited to the following, and you see a list of behaviors there. And again, this is really pretty basic, but if you've been in the lobby sometimes and you see people that are not happy checking in or checking out, or even our owners may have an issue, it's amazing to see how people can handle conflict. And obviously, no one wants to be screamed at or hollered at or yelled at. And so, again, this appears at first to be pretty basic. Like, you really need to put this in writing, and the response is yes, we do, and we need to post this in all areas of Tamarind so people see it. So if you're in the elevator going up to a floor, you see it there. If you're in one of the service centers, you may see it there. If you're in any of the public areas, you'll see it there. So the point was to just have it in people's minds, kind of a reminder. And then when we do have situations where things get a little heated, hopefully we can step back and remember the code of conduct and try to apply that and get through the situation in a professional and timely fashion. Eric, do you have anything to add to the development and of the draft here?
Ron, I guess the only thing I would add is that this is, as you said, this is kind of a guidepost, if you will, for behavior. This isn't an official part of our rules and regulations. There isn't an official mechanism for enforcement. There isn't an official link, for example, between what Ron just went through with the warning and then the potential for a fine. Our hope is that by making these basic guidelines available to everybody, that people will just, as part of the community, observe them. We hope as a board that we don't have to go any further. But this is what we're trying to do now.
Okay. Any questions?
Okay. Hey, Eric, will you want to address if I didn't cover it correctly, just make sure I did. We have to post it for 10 days. You want to address that process?
Yes. Under our existing governing docs, to make any change, we do need to post it. I guess in a perfect world, we could have posted this 2 weeks ago. Had a very short turnaround. We have a bit of a turnover on the board. I think it's great that the board have an initial conversation, and then we put it out on the website for comments for 2 to 4 weeks, whatever Ron feels is appropriate, and then the board will come back, as you say, consider any feedback we've received, and then make the decision as to whether we want to vote to incorporate this into our documents.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Eric. Okay, discussion. Any discussion in the audience? This has been something that we've been going back and forth on for quite some time. Obviously, there's a lot of common sense in this document, but we have to put it black and white. Go ahead, Jerry.
One minor comment in the intimidation line, you might want to add written as well as verbal and physical.
Okay.
Okay, good comment. Any other comments from the audience? Okay. All right, Ron, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. All right, we're going to move on to water. Greg, we don't have a whole lot to update on the water, but we've got a couple of things. So
About 2.5, 3 weeks ago, we did receive an agreement from Glacier. I've reached out to Glacier. I've reached out to our water consultant. At this time, though, I also caught up with Jerry as well. At this time, we do not have the water rate study completed. So before I think we do anything with an agreement, we need to look at that water rate study, kind of find out where we're at. I was told that they're looking at a date of April 1st of trying to get this completed.
Okay.
So in probably a compact amount of time, we're going to have to address this. As soon as we get that study, it goes to our consultant, and then we can get busy on it.
okay. And for everyone's benefit, in case you're not aware, we have been operating kind of in a vacuum of information, waiting for a better idea of the cost and the infrastructure requirements that Glacier has on their water. This has been going on for the better part of, 2 years, Jerry?
Oh,
No, longer than that. I don't remember.
A lot longer than that.
started
As long as I can remember, anyway.
Probably at the beginning of, probably in 2012, maybe.
Okay. Well, I just mean the discussions back and forth, because we've been
We started
going back and forth with
ongoing
rate increases of
continuous.
3% a year, or whatever the number
We
is.
started having meetings with Glacier on a new water rate structure, like Jerry said. I think it was 2011, 2012.
Yeah.
It's been a protracted process.
I have had the opportunity to reach out to quite a few folks, including Jerry, and get updates. And last trip, I went down and visited the facilities just to take a look at those as well. And so once we get kind of what the rates could be, et cetera, then we can see where we're at.
Okay. So to Greg's point, we did get an agreement. It's a legal agreement that came across from Glacier about 3 weeks ago. There's no terms, there's nothing in there as far as rates. We've done nothing with that agreement at this point because we felt it did not make sense to start debating language and substance of a contract because I think our larger discussion will be around the rates when it comes in. So, Jerry, you want to have a comment on that?
Yeah, I took a quick look at that draft agreement, and I have several comments, but Greg, offline, I'll get together with you on that. But I would want to suggest to the board that we get some legal eyes on, obviously, on the draft agreement. Make sure that we're protected. That's a general statement. The other comment that I would make right up front is that, Greg, I hope that we can insist on getting a copy of the rate study report, not something that's corrected or edited by Glacier, but
The actual
copy of
study.
the direct rate
Yep.
study report from their contractor.
Okay, so just for the record, this has been delivered to Ken. We met with Ken yesterday and just basically said, don't incur any fees at this point. Let's wait until we get the rest of the document with the rates and fees tied to it before we incur any more fees with him. When we got the agreement, they implied that study would be coming quickly. We have been given a tentative, I don't know why April 1st is a real deadline to them, but they've said that they want to have it done by then.
Maybe the appropriate date.
Yeah. We're not sure what's going to come in. They have implied it will be any day. So. Okay, board, any discussion on water?
Can I clarify, the information we got 3 weeks ago was a legal agreement?
It was a legal agreement, yes. It was the initial draft of a legal agreement that we would use to revise or replace, I should say, the existing agreement that we had in place that expired sometime in the past.
Of course, it was missing the meat of the matter.
Yeah, I mean, without the rates and terms, which is going to be the contentious discussion, probably it didn't warrant spending a whole lot of time on it at this point.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
Eric has written in, Scott, do you plan to have a special meeting for board discussion and approval to sign? How about how meet April target?
Yes, likely we will have to do that. Once the agreement comes in, we get the rates and fees. We're going to have a special meeting to discuss that, I would think. We don't have a meeting between now and April, obviously. So if we have to take action to ensure that, and nobody says we have to meet an April 1st deadline. That's the deadline they've indicated they'd like to get to. We've waited for this a long time, and we need to take the appropriate time to review it and respond and do whatever we need to do. And if April is realistic, we'll try to get it done. If it's not, then we'll take the time that we need.
What I heard was that April is the target for getting the rate study done and to us, right?
No, they want to have the deal done.
They want to have the deal done by April 1st?
Yeah.
Greg, I don't remember now, in the draft agreement, does it actually have an effective date that it would be in effect? Or is it upon signing by the required?
It's upon signing, but it was indicated that kind of a wish date, if you will, would be April 1st.
Yeah, I think it was in the email, if I remember correctly. It just said that was a goal.
So when are we supposed to see the rate study?
So that's why
they said any day 3 weeks ago. So
they were going to try to get it to us before this meeting. They weren't able to do that. And I followed up with our consultant, and he hadn't heard anything either.
Any other questions from the audience? Yeah.
Gus from Bull Spring, 5, 12, 13, 7, 8, 8, 9.
You sure about that?
Your time's up now.
I forgot about
You know which one you're staying in right now?
I mean, let's face it, we're just being stalled along. And we'll continue to be stalled along. I was starting to think about some alternatives. Does somebody really think we're going to reach a point?
Well, there is no alternative.
There is no alternative, yeah.
There's no alternative for water.
Yeah.
I
will tell you this, guys.
You say, let's be honest. Let's be honest.
Yeah. I don't know why April 1st is a discussion date, but Glacier has done a lot in the past 6 months to a year for us to get off the TV, the internet, telephone.
Yeah.
They seem to be moving directionally to get some things done. I'm sure there's a reason why. We can speculate what that is. We don't know what it is, but they have indicated that this water is, it's kind of the last hanging chad that we need to deal with, that we don't have substantive discussions going on with. As soon as we get this contract in place, we'll re-engage and have substantive discussions with them. But we've come away a good distance in 2018, and we think 2019 might, get us past a lot of these lingering issues we've had for years with Glacier. But there's no other way to get water. I thought I saw another hand go up. Somebody else have a question? Okay. All right. No other discussion there. We will provide an update now on the TV, internet, telephone discussion. Is there anything that we need to cover on Groove?
I've got a little, just something to put up on the screen.
Okay.
We're gonna go ahead and do that. Yeah. Gary, the communications update.
Okay.
By the way, how's everybody like their DirecTV? Better?
Picture's great.
It is.
The content is.
We like the price.
That price is right.
Oh, yeah.
All right, what are we looking at?
The communication services update. It's a PDF.
Yep.
Okay, it's got the right date on it. Okay. All right, so television, that's easy. Groove finished the installation of the DirecTV system on or about December 15th. There was a few punch list items, and there are probably still a few more out there. I showed up first time on the property in 2.5, 3 months, and my DVR wasn't installed. But Cody's real good. He came up and he said, "I'll do it now." And when I got back to the unit, the DVR was installed. So, and like Bob says, like the price. I mean, I've compared notes with, we're paying $30 a month, a little over $30 a month for what, if you were in downtown Durango and you ordered DirecTV, you'd be paying $130 to $150 for the same thing, exactly the same thing. And so we've got a good deal on that. Internet and telephone. So as we reported last board meeting, we're still going to be on Glacier's internet phone system for several more months, probably into late summer this year. They would like to have us off their system by August. We would like that too. We'd like it sooner, and we're working on that. As you may know, Glacier contracted with a local Colorado company, Cedar Networks, to run new fiber optic cabling throughout the property behind the gate and to the estates and to the Cliff's Edge properties down there just east of Gamble Oak. And they're pretty close to being fully completed. I was talking to Bill Pouillon skiing the other day, and he says he's up on that system, and his speed tests are showing him 100 plus megabits download, and it's great. He's pleased as punch, and so they're pretty close to getting done with that. We just completed. Scott signed the MOU with Glacier, which will allow us to also do the same kind of a deal with Cedar Networks, using the existing Glacier-owned conduit that runs between our complexes here on this side. That had to happen because we don't own that conduit. It runs through Glacier property. As you know, Taco is 4 islands sitting on property that's 100% owned by Glacier Club. We're landlocked, and so that conduit that connects our complexes isn't ours. So we're going to have to license it from the use of it from Glacier. And so where we are now, this all happened pretty quick yesterday.
Yeah. So the MOU was delivered to Glacier yesterday. We've been holding off on executing an agreement with Cedar pending the MOU. There is a requirement within the memorandum of understanding that Glacier has to amend the contract that they have with Cedar. That is primarily because the conduit that delivers runs from Glacier property to Taco property is technically owned by a different entity controlled by Carlton. So they have to amend the agreement. That agreement was delivered to Cedar yesterday. Cedar has indicated they've reviewed it. They don't have any issues with the amendments. It will not alter the terms of the agreement that we have already been reviewing with Cedar. I just got an email about 20 minutes ago from Chris Stebner with the new agreement, or the cleaned up agreement, I should say, that we'll need to review.
Ours with them or?
Ours with Cedar.
Ours with Cedar.
Well, I didn't look at it that close. I might have got the other one too, but long and short of this is, we were going down two paths. I think you guys, anybody who was at the last couple of meetings, we kind of had two horses in the race, two ISPs. We determined that the path of least resistance and the most expedited process was to go with the vendor that Glacier was using.
And the most economically feasible.
And the most economically feasible one as well. The other ISP would have required a relatively significant investment, and we still would have had to get access to the conduit. And we weren't wholeheartedly convinced that that was not going to be a contentious discussion with Glacier on trying to get another party access to the conduit. They'd already given Cedar access. There was agreement in place. So we will likely, we passed a motion last time approving me to go ahead and sign those agreements when they became available. So we will likely execute the agreement with Cedar here shortly. The commitment, I met with Cedar on Thursday or Wednesday when I got to town. Cedar has indicated that they can get started almost immediately on running the infrastructure that they need to run. We will start with the lodge. The fiber already exists and is run through conduit down to the tennis court area. I don't know, is that switchbox down? I mean,
there's some infrastructure down. There's something down there.
Long and short, we believe
that's the connecting point.
Yeah,
down there. Yeah.
We believe we can run fiber over the snow initially to try to get the lodge lit up first. The agreement we worked out with Glacier does require that we make payment to Glacier, continue to make payment of the, $60 for phone and internet, but Glacier will adjust those payments as we get each cluster in the lodge lit up. So we will begin to see reduction in costs while we go through this transition process with them. Okay. So our expectation is we will run that fiber up the hill from the tennis courts to the lodge. They'll begin that process. We don't know how long that'll take. We will then likely transition to Pinecone. We will not get it all done until we have snow melt because we can't get to the conduit right now. So timing wise, I think the agreement is 8/31 with Glacier to be completed, but we have indicated a desire to get that done more quickly and to have those rates adjust pro rata as we bring each cluster online. So
when each cluster comes online, for instance, the lodge first, then the lodge owners would stop paying the $60 a month and they would start paying the negotiated rate with Cedar. We haven't signed that contract yet, but it's less.
Yeah, that's the idea.
Yeah. So I don't want to get into the numbers, but because we haven't signed it off, it isn't signed off yet, but it will be less than the 60 we're paying now, and for a much better product.
Any questions from the board? We really don't have a motion or anything to address here, so.
Yeah.
Nothing?
Yeah, just information.
Okay.
Yeah. You've got the authority to complete these contracts, so.
Yeah. Ron, I think I saw your hand.
Right, Ron Hyman, 504-505. Fiber optic is great, delivered to our doorstep. We're saddled with old technology, coax and or Cat3 cable.
That's going to be replaced.
That's all going to be replaced.
So we're going to run fiber optics to each unit.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wow, we're going to need some reserves.
No, this is all covered.
Reserve. It's not going to be inexpensive.
No, we're not
paying a dime for it.
We've
Company's
agreed.
putting it in.
in principle, we've agreed to a 5-year agreement with Cedar so that they can recoup the cost of that investment. So, and then, as we said, that will be telephone and internet that will be delivered by that fiber. And again, our anticipation or our hope is, we want to have as much snow as we can get, but then again, we want to melt as soon as the mountain closes so that we can get this started. So we don't know when that'll happen, obviously, at this point, but we're hopeful we can at least get it started in advance. I was very clear to Chris that if he had small enough people, he could crawl under the cluster buildings and start this process before it melts as well. So we'll see what happens.
Scott?
Yeah.
During installation of this, especially here in the lodge, is this going to create any problems with television service while they're working on particular units or
Completely
particular
separate.
buildings?
Completely separate.
Okay.
You're going to continue to get internet on the over the coax as you are now until you're cut over to the fiber. It's a completely different network. The only thing that's going to be on coax after this is all done is from the dish antenna down to your TV. That's all. All that other coax that's strung throughout the property will be abandoned or pulled out.
Yeah, the idea was to future-proof this so that we don't have, we've got
We're moving into
theoretically a 20-year window of technology that we won't have to worry about anymore.
we're moving from ancient to current.
Yeah.
I ask because I know I'm going to be asked.
Jerry?
Joe, Scott, and Gary, I consider this very exciting and positive news, and I'm very, very happy to hear it. I would like to request that the owners get updated with progress, as it happens, so that we know, when and what's happening.
Well, you're going to be, because there's going to be, just like there was with Gary was pretty good about letting everybody know when your TV stuff was going to be installed. It'll be the same kind of a process.
Yeah, I would anticipate that we're going to have, let's face it, there's going to be some switchover times, and I'm sure Gary will be sending out saying, hey, effective this date, this is what we anticipate. You may be down for a couple hours, but there will be communications as we understand the process. We don't truly understand the process yet because we haven't really started deep discussions on how long it's going to take for each area. Yeah.
I know a couple of Charles Packard, 321, 323 in the lodge. When the first negotiations were going on about a year and a half ago, was that when the first discussions were coming up on the internet and everything?
It's about right. Yeah, that
I
was
inquired, and there was talk that there would be in the lodge a community hotel open internet. Will each have a secure portal in each unit?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
You'll have your own modem. Every unit will have its own modem.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Yep.
We're not going to
Its
have
own
the,
fiber optic modem.
the Wi-Fi deals all over the place.
No more community Wi-Fi. Find the closest one. Big improvement.
Yeah, and it should be noted that that we're going to have them drop the business line fiber as well, so that the front desk, the offices back here for maintenance, the restaurant space, that kind of thing, will drop connections there as well.
Yeah. We're probably anybody who's in the rental program is probably going to have to program a guest access code.
Okay.
So that when you have a renter come in, they can use your internet. Because they won't be able to find a Wi-Fi.
All right.
Yeah, and it's somewhere else.
Any other questions? Well, this has come a long way. I remember last year and a half, 2 years ago, we were struggling with 3 or 4 megabits per second speed, and I think Glacier's been bragging that they're up to 10.
It improved to 4.
Yeah,
it was
right.
It was less than a meg for a long time.
Hey, Joe.
Yeah.
Is it possible that we could arrange for one hotspot down in the lobby, restaurant, business center area?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, we'll likely have something like that.
Yeah, we'll certainly have something like that.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that people didn't think there were going to be none. I think we'll definitely have at least one.
Yeah, but in the common area, not up here in the room, and not up here in the units.
Yeah, we probably are going to need to put one in here.
For here.
Yeah,
right.
For this meeting room,
For
we'll
this
probably
meeting
need
room.
to put something in and around the lobby and restaurant area.
Yep.
don't know if we have any other public areas that.
And all the businesses.
Yeah.
Yep.
Maybe out in the North Tower, or that right there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jerry. Okay. All right. Well, let's move on. What time is it? It's 10:45. You know, I'm gonna.
It's 9:45.
I'm not. I got a Central Time computer.
Mine does that too.
I'm going to skip ahead only because I'd like to take a break at 10, and I think the restaurant space might be a protracted discussion. So I'm going to cover a couple of things in advance of that. So I'll start with the financing discussion that's on the agenda there. As you guys are aware, I've probably been working now for a year and a half to try to get financing, conventional conforming financing for the units here, which means we would have access to Fannie Mae interest rates, conventional conforming loan sizes. There are very strict and specific requirements in order to obtain that. Fannie, in the interest of their duty to serve, changed their condo requirements last spring. So I've been working here with a lender and their legal team to try to get approval of Tamarron. We have got that approval down. We got an opinion letter back from the lender's attorney, who happens to be the lender we're working with here in Durango, happens to be based in Houston, about a mile from my office. The law firm they're using is a guy I've known for 20 years, so I've been able to, get kind of firsthand access to that process. At this stage, we are basically just needing to. We've got 100% approval across the board for the budget, for everything, all the requirements that Fannie makes us submit. We have to submit financials, we have to submit our budget, we have to submit a reserve study, long-term asset replacement study. That's all been reviewed, that's all been approved, that's all been blessed. At this stage, we have modifications that need to be made to the CCRs. Those modifications are really around lien holder notification requirements. We will be examining those changes in executive session and making recommendations to move forward on doing that. So I don't know. I can't tell you from a timeline perspective how quickly we can get this done. Obviously, the last time the CCRs were updated was 2009. There are some other minor cleanup items we will likely do as part of this. That process does require an owner vote. So once we identify those items that we feel like we wish to include at this point, we will be distributing that and be looking for an owner vote to get that done. So I'd like to think that we can get this accomplished before the next board meeting. It's exciting. It's something we have never had here. I think it will give us access to financing, give us access to refis, cash out refis for remodeling at competitive rates. So it will also obviously help with the values of the homes, because you'll have a lot more buyers who have the opportunity to buy here than a lot of us have paid cash, and we just haven't had the availability of financing outside of an ARM product that has been overly attractive. So. That's that update. Any questions from the board or on that? Anybody in the audience? Yeah, Jerry.
Jerry Q2 623. Scott, I'm really glad that you're on the board because you know this stuff. I certainly don't. It all seems quite opaque to me.
Just go to Fannie website. You can read all day. It's riveting material.
Put you right to sleep.
I have a root canal I want to schedule. So anyway, no, I'm very glad to hear that you're working on this stuff. Can you explain a little bit what CTRs are and why you have to go into executive session to discuss some of this stuff?
Well, the DCCRs obviously are binding documents. And the language within those DCCRs address a myriad of issues that some of which don't exist anymore. For example, there are language in the DCCRs around our pull and spa lease. we don't need to have language in our DCCRs around a pool and spa. We don't have a pool and spa. As far as the financing goes, there are notification requirements that Fannie indicates have to be in place, where if we make a change to that would affect the ownership and there's a vote required, that we not only have to notify all of you of that voting requirement, those same notifications need to go to the lien holder of any property that we know has a lien on it. We're going to have some exploratory action as a result of this, because we don't know who has a lien. We have no way to know who got a loan on their property when they bought it. So another provision requires, if there were a fire and we lost a big chunk of the building here, and we opted not to replace it for whatever reason, and we had to go through a vote, the lien holders have a right to have a voice in that. So that's really the language requirements that we need to revise. Joe or Eric, do you want to add anything to that from the DCCR's perspective? You guys, you were here when we did it last time, so.
I have my own difficulties with some of the rights of lenders that have been opposed by Kiowa and things we have to. So
for the record, we used to have this language in there. We removed it in 2009.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And I don't want to see it get. I don't want to see that what we removed in 2009 get put back in there.
Well, I understand, but we have to make that decision whether, if we want financing, and there will be a cost element to this, right? If we've got to send out notifications to lien holders, we have to track lien holders. That is a cost element to it.
You'd have to do a title search on every unit to find out.
I don't know that we'd have to, but yes, that is a possibility.
Yeah. So it could be costly.
Yeah. I mean, in theory, if we can get everybody to respond and let us know if they have a lien, we don't have to go through that exercise. But we all know that our response rate is hardly 100% when we reach out. So again, it's a discussion point we have to work through. Gary, does that address?
Yeah, and it's my old age hearing. I didn't hear DCCRs. I heard something else.
I said CCRs. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's okay. But it requires an amendment of our declaration of covenants.
Yes.
Yeah, major document.
It is a major document, but we've known, we've had the repair issue that we've talked about before that has caused some issues when we had some plumbing problems. We've got some ambiguity that we need to address, and we need to discuss what we want to tackle now and what we will likely tackle later, because there's some things in there that I don't think we can get done quickly.
Dare I raise the issue of, if you have to amend the DCCRs, fixing some of the other issues that we have with
that is part of the discussion.
Okay.
And likely, I don't know that we'll get this all done in one phase. We may have to do multiple phases to get it done, because we've talked again and again about assessments, and we're involved in that. That ain't going to happen overnight. That's going to take time again, as you well know.
Yeah.
What's up?
Scott, now I take it that you're reaching out to local lenders. Is that correct?
Well, I haven't addressed this necessarily with local lenders. I have a particular local lender that had an interest in getting the condominiums approved with their legal team.
Right.
So that just happens to be a lender called Cornerstone that's based in Houston, which made it a lot easier for me. Certainly other lenders could benefit from this, but they have to go through the same exercise with their legal teams.
Okay.
I think once it's in place, we will see others get on board. The important thing to me is we have an opportunity here because Fannie's made the adjustment to their rules. Typically, they won't go back and retract that. So I'd like to get it done now that we have an open window to do so. And for the record, this would include Freddie Mac too, Fannie and Freddie. FHA is a little more questionable right now. I don't know if we can get FHA financing, but any other questions?
So in your opinion, it's pretty promising, this thing that you're.
It all comes down to whether we can come to an agreement on the documents.
That'd be a good thing. I know we ran into some obstacles when we bought here, with the local lenders. So we said the heck with it, big cash,
We're light years ahead of where we would have been a year ago before Fannie made the change. Yeah. So, I mean, we've literally got everything approved. It's just a function of do we wish to unwind what we, what we took out of there in 2009, which are those notification provisions?
Right.
And, right now it might not be a big deal, but 10 years from now, we may have 60% of the people here that have financing, right? And then that notification requirements is a different burden than it might be today. Any other questions or comments? Okay. I don't know if Heather's coming up. Why don't you guys good to break now? It's almost 10. And I'll text Heather. I don't know if she's coming up or not. I thought she was, but she's not here yet. So why don't we take about a 10-minute break. We'll be back here at 5 after 10.
Oh, the
Coming tonight? Yeah. What time's it start? 6 o'clock. Okay, maybe it's a little late.
Like, go ahead and stand out there. I'd be surprised.
Yeah, we'll go back and then.
Policy for only $22 a month. Why pay more? Give your family the security.
You guys are doing a great, incredible job. Thank you.
Did you do it there downtown on?
No, I went to Junction.
No, I did it right here in town. Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Hey, Joe. Julie sent that report. I can't hear. Julie sent that report. Do we want to address that? I didn't know if it was really that important to do so. Julie Houston sent it.
No, I mean, I got a couple of data points on real estate if you want me to throw them out there.
Let's wait and see if it comes up in discussion.
Scott, Scott, I have that here, if you wanted to display it.
Yeah.
I mean,
I sent it to you this morning.
It's too busy to put up there. 11 or 12 units on the market that are not sales pending. There's about a half a dozen sales pending. I mean, the key is, if you look at I started keeping track in 2012. The overall price per square foot sold per square foot dollars. In 2012, it was $91 a square foot. Last year, 183. Double. So,
Great.
and you ready for this? You have an AS in
Yeah. Jerry has an IB.
an IB unit sold like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Unit, it's over on the east side, same side as you.
Yeah.
You ready? 168,000 for an IB.
How many square feet is that?
Oh, well, they had a little loft in it, so it was 481 plus a couple of plus 150, something like that. 'Cause you can't get much of a loft up there. Well, you know what else I heard? Kay and Norm Jones. Yeah, Norm and Kay Jones. They put their unit on the market. Have you seen the inside of that one? No. It's really well done.
They
Really
just had it done and put a loft in there.
They're asking 240.
They just throwing a number out there and see if
I
anybody bites.
think they can. They want to sell because they're looking at a place in Florida.
All right, let's go ahead and get started, guys.
You got an IB too?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, I need it. This won't make a lot of noise.
Hey, I got one too.
All right. All right, guys, come on. We want to go ahead and get started. You want to unmute?
We're unmuted.
We're unmuted. Okay, we're going to go ahead and kick back in here. Now that we have Heather here, I'm going to go ahead and address ARC, or rental program ARC, so that Dave can move on his way if we don't have anything else that we need him for. So let's start with the rental program, Heather.
Okay. Just kind of real quickly and in general, one of the things we did this last fall was put all of our properties on Airbnb, and we've seen some good progress with that. I just tracked the Christmas holiday season, and we had 65 nights generated by the Airbnb listings, which was a little over 23,000 in revenue. And then our social media postings, even though those are kind of hard to correlate a posting with a reservation, I tried to match a day of a posting with what reservations came in that day or the following day.
Send your
And
PowerPoint this one.
kind of a loose correlation, maybe that was 21 new reservations created around social media posting days. And as I mentioned at the last meeting too, we've definitely seen an increase with activity with the event center next door. So I think we had 12 weddings in 2018. Right now I'm working with 13 wedding groups in 2019 and one family reunion group. And then just kind of in general, since the amenity center opened in August, we have been getting good feedback, yes, on the amenity center, fitness center, and of course the ability to golf. So that's kind of just my little general report. If anybody has specific questions, we can talk about that either now or outside of the meeting. I'm here all day.
Thanks, Heather. I'm trying to get this presentation that has your numbers on there onto a thumb drive. So, as I mentioned earlier, we have Ann, there we go, working on some marketing, and I'm about to pull that up. I thought I sent it to Gary, and apparently didn't.
Gary might have missed it.
Okay, should say social media on there. Okay, so what Ann did for us primarily was, as I said, update the website. She used a term that I can't remember what it is, but it was a term that basically responsive, yeah, website is now responsive, which is kind of the necessary evil that you need to have to allow it to communicate with the Google search platforms and be able to start bringing up your ratings in Google, so that when people search for rental properties in the Durango area, ours will come up towards the top of the list. So to that Facebook page, she's been doing posts on both Instagram and Facebook on all of the Durango events, purgatory events, things that go on in town that are just interest to locals. And then she has begun trying to track the activity around that. This is just a little bit of an example that she pulled a few days ago. And Facebook gives you the ability to do what's called targeted marketing. Targeted marketing means you can choose an area of the country, a demographic, the type of people you want to reach in a specific age group, and you can target those in Facebook, and Facebook will then go out and post your ad to those areas or those individuals. So she has been focused on doing posts to that demographic there, basically an age range, I think from 18 to 64 is what she has in there. Our responses have been from 55%, or our activity has been 55% women, 45% men. And we're able to track that activity. Since we started this, I think we had 10 followers when we initially started. We're up to 132 now. The idea with any social media is to leverage that social fabric, the social network that exists. So if I like something tomorrow, then all my friends that on my Facebook page are going to see that I liked it. And that may cause them to go look at it. They may decide to like it, or they may decide to follow it. And then you get access to all of their friends. And it's, that's the idea, is to grow this. So when we decided to do this, we focused on an area of Oklahoma. You may remember this better than me, Heather, but I think it was Oklahoma, Arizona, Texas, New Mexico, basically the surrounding states, obviously, the Colorado area as well, because that's where we get a lot of our activity here. So we try to focus on a reasonable drive, a specific demographic, to try to get activity around it. The advertising expense for a post on Facebook is extremely nominal. I mean, we can hit thousands and thousands and thousands for $25. So we've been experimenting with that, and it is very much a work in progress. We've just started to try to track what we're doing, and we're going to start producing some reporting around it. It's not an exact science. As I mentioned earlier, it's a dartboard. We don't know positively if somebody is showing up as a result of a social media post, if they're showing up because they found it on the website, if they're showing up because a friend referred them. The only way we can really find that out is by asking them when they check in. And what's your process for that now, Heather?
We normally don't ask that, to
be
honest.
Yeah. So again, it's a work in progress. We may need to start addressing that. The idea is to get the people here. Obviously get them to like our page, rate their stay, talk about this in their social network, so it continues to grow and expand. You want to go to the next slide, and you're going to have to blow this up. I don't know that we'll even be able to see it, but okay. So can you hit on the down on the right-hand corner? You can expand your view. Go to like 100%. See what I'm talking about?
No, because this is a little bit different.
Let me see if I can help.
This is why I always.
Are you in Facebook? I mean, are you in PowerPoint? I should say.
I'm in PowerPoint, yeah.
Okay.
That's why I'd always like to. I prefer to show these as a.
Well, we don't need to go into detail. I can certainly share it. In essence, what that is that's every post we've done since August, and the numbers in there. And I can pull it up on mine and expand it. You won't be able to see it. But what Heather did was she went in and looked at every post that we did and tied the post to bookings that happened within a few days thereafter. Is that correct? So what she tried to do is say, hey, we did a post on 9/18 or 9/7. How many reservations did we see in the days following that? So that's what those are the dates and the figures that she just provided, are kind of just a a rough stab at, hey, we did a post, did we get any activity? So we're going to try to figure out the best way to measure that going forward. As I said, it's not an exact science. If I look at,
Is this what you want, Scott?
yeah.
Unfortunately, we get it.
So just to kind of give you some ideas here, and I'm sorry that you can't see this, but it's, so we did a post on the Iron Horse, and it reached 2,500 people. We did it on January 24th. So the Iron Horse comes up, it's Labor Day or Memorial Day weekend. That post, in that targeted post, reached 2,500 people. We had 40 people get engaged with that. That doesn't sound like a lot, but that's a singular post. We had 40 people that at least responded to it, opened the post, and took a look at it. She did one on January 18th, and when she does them, we reached 17,600 people. We had 68 people get engaged. We had a boatload more likes on Instagram. It was like 2,000 within a day. And all the post said was after a big snow day. It said, yet another powder day of Pergs. Don't wait any longer to book with us and get a room at Tamarack. So that's the type of activity that she's doing. She took some pictures when she was skiing, reached 181 people, 25 people responded. Bluebird Day, 109 people reached, 22 people responded. So she has done probably 40 or 50 posts so far since this started, and we'll continue to do it. And she's going to start pulling this monthly. So again, it's not an exact science, but it does start to show us what social media can do to kind of expand the network of awareness of the Tamarron property that we have and the rental program that we have here. We'll continue to do that. We have found that we get a heck of a lot more activity on Instagram. I'm far from an expert on this, and I don't really use Instagram, so I don't know why that's the case, but at least it's working. Go to the next slide.
Yeah, let's see.
Okay, so this is just the month of January. So the posts that we did in January reached 20,553 people in that targeted audience in the states that we mentioned with the demographic and the age group and things like that. So again, this reporting is available on Facebook. We have had, you see that 9,371% increase on just what she did in January. And a lot of that was because what happened the last week of December? Was anybody up here Christmas? We had no snow, right? It sucked. It was terrible. The 28th it dumped, and we just got continual snow thereafter. And we started doing posts saying, hey, come ski, come stay at Tamarron, come play in the powder. Hey, we just got 9 inches, those kind of things. And you notice the activity that we see as a result of that. So again, we do have Ann under contract to do this. We're going to continue this experiment throughout the year. The idea is to get it to a point where it is self-sustaining, and obviously, Heather and her folks can help manage it. But none of us were really experts on how to do this. We've also added a functionality on the Facebook page that allows somebody to click book now, and they can immediately get routed straight to try to Heather to book a room. So this is a changing dynamic as to how we market the rental program. But so far I've been impressed by kind of the activity we've gotten, but it is something that has to be maintained, which is why we contracted with Ann. You can't just post once every 4 months. You got to keep up on what's going on in town. There's a film festival, there's a bike race, there's whatever's going on. You're trying to generate activity around that because you're trying to focus on specific interests. You may hit a demographic that says, I want 18 to 30 people interested in mountain biking, right? And you may do that when they have a mountain bike race up at Purgatory. So that's the level of granularity you can get with this marketing, but we're still playing with it and learning from it. So any questions from the board or anybody in the room? So Jerry, this is what I was referencing earlier. I mean, it's we think we're getting activity, but we don't know for sure, and we've got to figure out how to measure that. Rental activity, that is. Yeah.
Gus, I'm not
we got to Gus.
Are we fairly competitive, or how do we compare in our pricing? And more importantly, I'm still in the predatory program. Are we balancing that pretty well, or is there some divergence between what they charge and what you charge?
Yeah, there would be a definite price difference.
Purgatory being lower?
Yeah.
Because they're subsidizing the skiing.
Yeah, I mean.
So that's not healthy, is it?
I mean, we've got me, we've got 4 other property management companies, we've got Purgatory, and we've got about 35 owners that manage their own condo. So we have pricing all over the board for Tamarack condos. So just trying to be in line with Purgatory, who only manages 6, isn't my biggest concern.
Yeah.
My biggest concern is, who am I getting in here? Am I getting the right kind of guest in here? I'm not necessarily trying to be the cheapest on the hill. Don't necessarily, I kind of want the family demographic versus the 18-year-old demographic. So, everybody's got their own model that they follow, and we're never going to get everybody to price everything the same with basically 40 different people managing condos. But yeah, I mean, if you look at prices at any given time, probably sometimes I'm lower than somebody, probably sometimes I'm higher.
But one of the advantages of trying to get more activity and more awareness is, let's face it, Purgatory, I mean, they're going to build that hotel. They've already announced it. I said 2020. That seems awfully aggressive, but it's competition to us, and they're always going to have a leg up on us. So the more awareness we can have of this property, they're going to sell out probably a lot of times, especially on the heavy weekends. The better for us. We can continue to let folks know that we have this. They don't have a golf course, so you got to weigh the good with the bad, and we need to try to leverage our advantages. They're going to leverage theirs. Okay.
There is a suggestion online. Get the page out to owners so we can get more likes and shares.
Okay, so let's just, you get with me and we'll get an email out to everybody with links and all that kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah, and again, I know I've announced this at previous meetings, but all you have to do is search on Facebook or Instagram for Tamaron and you can find it. But we'll try to get links out as well.
They could also go to my website, and there's a place to click on to all those social media posts.
Okay.
To get directly to the page.
Okay, perfect. Any other comments? All right, let's move on to ARC, and we'll come back to the restaurant.
Okay, we've got.
I want to get him out of here. He's been standing there for a while, so let's let go Dave do his day job.
We've got one unit, 238, 239. It's a combined unit, and there is a person interested in purchasing the 2 units, and again, it's combined. What they want to do is the door to it. 239, it's the end unit on the second floor. And what they want to do is put a closet in behind the door, a ski closet, where the door currently opens in. What they want to do is just move the door in the jamb to where it opens up and make the entrance 239 a ski closet, basically to store their ski gear. It would be the same door. Again, the only difference would be it'd move forward in the jamb. Other than that, there'd be no change to any of the exterior appearance.
So if everybody follows that, they're adjoining rooms. They would still enter into 238.
238.
They would still enter into that. They've got the adjoining room. They've already, I guess it's already been remodeled on the other side.
Yeah.
So it's a little different layout already. But what they would do is create a closet. They would enter from the outside, and then put their skis in, and then they put a wall in. And on the back side, they're going to have cabinets, just regular kitchen cabinets, because that's where their kitchen is, that they will use for spices and whatever the heck they use their kitchen cabinet for. So in essence, they're asking to swap the door. One of the challenges in that is that the electrical box is right next to that door. So, Dave, you want to provide any color on that? on what they need to do?
Yeah, I once again, I'm not an electrician, but I believe the electric code said this wouldn't meet the current electric code, so they would have to address that, either probably move the box, that panel, out of that closet into a wall inside the unit.
Okay, yeah, because literally the box right now is right when you open the door, the electric box is right there, so.
And then one other concern on that, with the doors alarmed for the fire system, we probably need to have the alarm system adjusted for that door.
Okay.
And then possibly some notification to the fire department, letting them know that 239 is not an entrance into the unit.
Okay.
But I know Boyd's looked at it, I've looked at it. I don't know if you've been up there and looked at it.
I haven't looked at it, but Dave showed me what the electrical system is in the unit next door, so I know what the issue is. And I have the same kind of unit, so I understand.
Yeah. I mean, to us, it looks like a reasonable request. There is an existing closet right next to it that has the door opens out right next to it. So based on that, I make a motion to approve, subject to the owner or the purchaser, all conditions being met to bring it up to code. Subject to that, I recommend we approve the request for the alteration, moving the door to swing out.
Okay. I'll second that. I've looked at the unit, and I don't have an issue with it. Any discussion from the board?
Rick, this is Eric.
Yes.
Does your motion state if they will pay the alarm changes?
Yes.
Not a topic, but
that's correct. The owner or the purchaser, they can work it out, but between them, they will be responsible for all costs associated with this request.
Any other discussion from the board? Okay. Gary, Dave, you got anything you need to add to that?
No.
Okay. Okay. I'm certainly comfortable with moving to a vote. Rick's made a motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Ron, was that you?
That's me. Aye.
Okay. Eric and Kathy?
Aye.
Okay. All right, 7-0. So the motion, Ron, is approved, subject to them having a revision with their contractor that includes the electrical and the fire. As Rick indicated, this property is under contract. So I will let Julie Houston know as well, as I spoke to her yesterday on it, that those would be the required revisions that would need to happen before we move forward.
Scott, should have mentioned this earlier. I assume this has the same provisions that any of our approvals do, and that it has to be returned to the original condition at the expense of the owner if they want to split those two units.
Yeah, I mean, that I would agree with. Yes. Yeah, I mean, I think it would be subject to them how they decide to sell that unit. Obviously, should they do so in the future.
We have some standard language.
Yeah. Did you have a second one?
No.
That was it. Okay.
Yeah, that was it. There was one other that someone had mentioned today, but they haven't brought anything forward yet.
Okay. Gary, there was a request from Julie yesterday to get the rules out relative to remodels. Did you get that, and did you get it to her?
I sent it to her, and I have it here.
Okay. Well, I just want to make sure it got to her because I know somebody wanted to see that before they made their request. Okay. Okay. You want to do your property report, Dave?
Sure. A lot of this has been covered by Joe. I may repeat some of the things he brought up in his report. The mailboxes down in Gambolo, we completed this winter or fall. That completes the mailbox project for the whole property. The north elevator did get pushed back to this spring. It is on schedule, probably happen early April, probably be close to an 8-week project. Met with them this past Wednesday with the electricians and the elevator people. We're moving forward, actually starting work on it next week. Some of the preliminary electrical work with the alarm people and the electricians. There may be an occasional shutdown before the full-time shutdown for a day to complete some of this work, but if there is, we'll put out notices. And we are getting quotes for the car upgrade also. Snow removal, covered, it's a big year. They've been really wet snows. We got ice dams a lot earlier than we usually do. We've had to clear multiple roofs already. We had to bring in trucks and haul it out of the parking lot to open up more parking and leave room for the next snowfalls. It looks like starting again Saturday night, we're going to be right back into it. The new hire, Joe mentioned, Cody, he worked for us 3 summers while he was a student at Fort Lewis. He graduated, came to work for us full time, working on the low voltage stuff. He's been a great hire, picking it up real quick. Why you probably met him if you've had issues, and he's been a good guy to add to the team. As a lodge roof in the this year's budget, we had money in to look at design. I have met with one architect. He's taking the plans for the lodge. He's looking it over, deciding if they're interested in giving us a bid to do the design work. The pipe issues we deal with every year, they're holding about the same. We are still dealing with cracked cast iron pipes on occasion. We currently have 3 jobs that are open that we're dealing with. That's pretty typical for this time of year. Recycling, we do have a recycling program. It's been doing well. It has saved us over the Christmas holidays having extra dumpsters for recycling that didn't go into the trash. The biggest issue we're seeing is people put their stuff in plastic bags and throw it in there. They won't take it that way. The plastic bags reject it. So we're asking people to, if you put it in a bag, dump it in loose. Don't put the bag in there. And some people still put in glass, but that looks like it's getting better. And the last thing is the testing Joe mentioned. I just want to clarify that we're not doing it, not because we're ignoring it, but it's in the International Fire Code. But Durango is not that part of the code yet. The fire code allows the local agencies to adopt the parts they want. So they keep saying they're going to, but they haven't. So we budget for it because we don't know at budget time whether the next year they're going to enforce that one. And if they don't enforce that, we've been using it to rebuild the fire pumps. Have to be done anyway. And if they happen in the same year, we might run over a little bit. So we're trying to accomplish some other things at the same time while the money's in the budget.
Quick comment on the recycle. I just happened to go in there this morning and take a box down, and I noticed you have a big sign that says no glass. Do we have a sign in there that reminds them to take no plastic bags? We might want to add that, because I noticed over Christmas there were several plastic bags thrown.
Yeah, we probably don't, but we can do that.
Okay. I don't know. Do you do the signs, Kara? Okay. If you could maybe just revise the sign that reminds people of that. And then you keep a trash can. Well, it's a blue recycle can, but is that typically used there for people? I mean, I think we need to have a trash can there, so if we remind them they can't put it there, they can at least stick it in a trash can right there.
We don't, because the trash cans are right around the corner from it.
Okay. There's one nearby, though.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
And if we find them in the blue cans outside, we just open up the bags, dump it out, because we're the ones dumping the blue cans.
Okay.
So we check it 2 or 3 times a day.
Okay. Well, I just filled the blue can with a bunch of plastic, so guilty as charged. But I didn't put it in the dumpster. I put it in the blue can. Okay.
Question.
Yeah. Is that Eric?
Are we looking at the lodge roof? I didn't catch that from Dave. We're getting cost estimates for the lodge roof?
We have an architect looking at the roof to see if he wants to quote on doing the design.
You catch that, Ron?
Okay. I think so.
Yeah, basically we have an architect looking at the roof to see if he wants to submit a bid for the design work.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Ron?
What are we
Yeah.
designing for the roof?
Oh.
The
Well-
shingles.
They are now. We're looking at different materials. We're looking at gutters. We're looking at heat tapes. We want to see if we want to upgrade from where we're at right now.
It's part of the long-term asset,
Yeah, I
because
just
we've got that
didn't
coming
know
up.
if we Get into some exposed steel structure and so forth, like some architects are working on downtown.
No, we're not looking at truly redesigning. We're just looking at what new products are out there and how we can do better than what we have now.
Yeah, great effort.
Okay, anything else for Dave, or can we let him go? All right. Yeah, what's up,
Yeah,
guys?
I'm sorry, this is probably not the right time. And I should have brought that, I wasn't here at the last meeting for the budget. I don't know if any of you have looked at Gamble Oak on the west side. I have some photographs. Looks awful raggedy. Now Taryn is doing her best, and of course the fact that we had some water problems last,
Talk about the roof, the
You're talking about the
exterior, what are we
buildings or
talking
the-
about?
I'm
landscaping?
talking about the landscaping. So is this the right time because Dave is here, or should I bring it up?
You can go ahead and bring it up. I mean, obviously, we're not gonna do anything till melt, but
Yeah.
certainly we can get it on the radar.
Well, anyhow, it's all dirt now. And
So you're talking the west side of the building that faces the
the
freeway?
west side of
Okay.
Gamble Oak. The east side seems to be getting less sun. And I don't know, I think it will take more intensive effort, whether that means sodding, I don't know, but it looks pretty raggedy. And I've looked at everywhere else, no one else is as bad as we. Now, you should know, don't you look at it too?
You're here more than me.
So my question is, can we do something maybe this year?
We can look at it. That's always been a tough, it's steep, the grass is steep,
Yeah,
the slope areas, and it's really heavily wooded with Gamble Oaks.
yeah.
And those shaded areas are always a struggle to establish lawn. in.
But at one time it was much nicer. So, yeah, I think it might take something more than just sprinkling a little something on it,
Yeah, we can look at it.
budget-wise.
Okay. Well, thanks for bringing it up.
Yeah.
You're further down than me. I don't have any trees to look at. I just look at the golf course, so. All right, any other comments? Okay. Dave, Heather, I don't think we need you anymore either if you're,
I'm gonna hang around.
you want to hang around. Okay, I'm just leaving it open to you. All right, so let's go back to the restaurant before we move into old and new business. So, Kathy, you're still there, right?
I am.
Okay. I'll cover as much of this as I can, and you can feel free to chime in.
Sure.
As I think you all are aware, we made a pretty concerted effort to try to convince Sari and help Sari help us get through the ski season with a restaurant, improve her service, change the hours, help us in the busy times, get more staff to the extent she could when we were busy, provide visibility into rentals and occupancy, help market her, come up with some ideas around breakfasts, blah, blah, blah. We even put a newsletter out. We addressed it in that. Long and short, when we met with her in November, we felt like we had a commitment. Fast forward into December, we were scrambling. I was up here for Christmas, and I ran into town 3 times to go to the Yellow Carrot to say, what about this? Where is this? So we talked about having Sandra's boards and visibility, and it was pretty obvious at that point that she wasn't overly committed to doing anything. So if you all were here, we had her open that entire week of Christmas. She had agreed to be open through the 31st. We got notification, I believe, on the 29th that she was going to cease her operations. So at this stage, obviously extremely disappointed because we tried to do a lot. I had Ann do a bunch of things on, revised menu and some things like that. But long and short, she has pulled out. We obviously have a hell of an amenity down there with that space. We need to solve for that. We have not done so as of yet. At this stage, Sari did do some relatively significant upgrades to the property when she came in. We have negotiated, I think, a relatively fair exit for her, which basically involves us not giving up any of the fixtures. The way the agreement was written is she needed to, it was a 5-year lease, if I remember correctly, and she needed to return it to its original condition. Well, she put in hardwood floors, so I don't know if they're hardwood or tile or what they are. She pulled the carpet out. She painted. She removed replaced all the light fixtures. She put shelving in and hooks and, did a lot to that. And her initial request was, to take a lot of that stuff out. We've since gone back to her, and she's agreed to really leave everything other than her kitchenwares, the things that she brought up here, glasses, what you call it, smallware, whatever that is, kitchenware, dry storage, just miscellaneous items that she would use to run her restaurant. We've already let her take the computer, the point of sale system, which again, that's a leased product for her that she worked with a vendor on. We have all the third-party vendors have come in and removed their ware, anything that, linens or things that the third-party vendors provide. So right now we have a space down there that's largely empty. She has not removed any of the other items yet. We've got a couple of things pending with her. She had a couple of pieces of equipment that she'd taken down to town to have cleaned, so she needs to return that. So that's where we're at with the restaurant, or lack thereof. At this stage, as I said, we have not made any material decisions as it relates to that. I think the first process we have to go through is get her to remove what's left and make sure that any necessary cleaning is done to equipment in the back, grease traps, whatever needs to happen back there, so that should we decide to do something, at least it's in a, for lack of a better description, a move-in condition. We would then make decisions on ultimately, do we want to repaint, do we want to do anything like that? But at this stage, she's leaving all the tables. So, the fixtures, the shelves, all of that is staying in place. So, in theory, we have something that can be leveraged for a lot of different purposes. I don't, we've thrown around a lot of ideas. I've had a lot of suggestions from owners around ideas of different types of restaurants. The long and short of this is we have tried this 4 times now. And having a uninterested third party try to run a restaurant up here, who does not have, a reason to be motivated about this property and to run a profitable business for the association and for the ownership here, has just proven a model that doesn't work. I mean, we've got, Sari ran another business. She's a caterer. That's her primary business. Cuckoo's obviously had their restaurant in town. This was a sidebar. We never could, they couldn't duplicate what they had in town, and they decided to pull out. We have a hell of a space downstairs. It has been fixed up. It could be used as a catering space. It could be used as meeting space. It could be used for special events. Heather is getting a lot more interest from the wedding parties wanting to do special events down there, rehearsal dinners. We have special events that happen around town. We really haven't tried to market it as that kind of space. We've had several ideas thrown at us, everything from a general store. We've had a few owners reach out and express an interest in possibly doing a restaurant. Again, I think anything we do going forward has to be in the best interest of the association. We have to ensure that anybody that is involved is understanding that we need to do what's right for the association, and that might be a combination of having it as a rentable private space as well as kind of a general store type concept or something else. So I'm going to leave it at that for now and solicit comments, because this could go on for a while. But that's kind of where we're at now. Board, does anybody have any questions or comments? Okay. I suspect there might be a few out there. So anybody want to have any comments, questions? Yeah, Jerry.
Jerry Q2623. Right now, can owners request use of the restaurant area for a private gathering? What's the process?
Gary's doing private gatherings this weekend there, so I guess the answer is yes.
Yeah, so, I mean, but can any owner say, I want to meet with some friends down there, we'll bring in some bottles of wine and, snacks.
I'm not the gatekeeper. I don't give permission, but.
Who is the gatekeeper?
I don't see any reason why we can't, because that's what.
Taco's the gatekeeper right now.
So, so is that possible? Is that something that?
That's certainly part of the discussion. Gary asked a couple of weeks ago, hey, can we use the space? And we said, sure. It is our space. If anybody can use it, ownership can use it. Now we need to put some rules around that, right? We can't just have, people down there throwing a big keg party. We've got to put some structure around that, and we don't know what that looks like right now.
Can we come up with like an sort of provisional or interim policy or guidelines for use of that space?
I think we should. Heather reached out. We have an interested party that wants to do rehearsal dinner, right? That's what it is, yeah. And they had already committed to do something or inquired upon using the space with Sari. They still want to use it. We haven't really addressed the question. Do we care if it's BYOB? Do we have a restriction if it's BYOB? I don't think there's a restriction, but we haven't really done the research on it. Tomorrow, what are you doing with the trivia? You telling people,
bring your own,
bring a 6-pack of ska?
Yeah. Bring whatever you want. Bring whatever food you want.
At
Bring
this
whatever
point, it's
drink
not
you
being
want.
run as a commercial establishment.
We can do whatever we want.
It's a private space.
Yeah.
That's right.
So you can do whatever the heck you want. Now, if you opened a food service restaurant in there where you sold food, I know there's other places here in this area, Electra Lake, their restaurant is bring your own.
Yeah.
If you want to drink there, you bring a bottle of wine or whatever you want to bring. And I don't think they charge a corkage fee or anything like that. But so I think I don't know what you'd have to do authority government wise to make that okay. But it seems to me it would be easy enough. But as long as we're not selling anything in there, we can do whatever the hell we want. It's our space.
And, I'm going to ask Bob to maybe say a few words. Bob, you ran 7 restaurants, whatever the number was you told me yesterday. Bob looked at the restaurant yesterday. It's turnkey. I mean, we literally could have somebody come in and just schlep burgers and hot dogs, right? It would be relatively easy to do, but it has to be. We all saw the Sari experiment. Nobody needs a burger that's this big for $18. That's not what we envisioned, I think, when she came in. We have, it really is an awesome kitchen. Why don't you, Bob, you look at it.
Well, my background and my wife's background, we were in the business for 22 years. We owned 7 restaurants. And all the restaurants it was from a 5-star restaurant to a pizzeria to a beach bar to, what have you. My observation of the restaurant downstairs, it's ready to go. I think that, it's just going to have to be decision on the board, which way you want to go with it. I also agree that whatever decision you make, it has to be, it has to be to the benefit of the HOA and the Tamarron owners, period. Okay. I don't know how everything was put together with Sari or some of the other previous people, but I also think that there are so many revenue streams there that can be approached. Whereas when you start looking at your budget review and what have you, it's going to be in the plus. It will definitely be.
Well, it has to be.
It has to be. Well, it does. Okay. And so in my view, as being in the restaurant business and owning so many restaurants as I have, it's a very viable space. I mean, but you have to make that decision on how you're going to go with it. A couple of the other owners here, they have reached out and said, hey, look, we're willing to do this. We're willing to come in here, and they got skin in the game then, because that's what they want to do. They want to make sure that the restaurant represents what it should here at Tamarron. You look around the area, there's very successful restaurants. And why? You have to ask yourself why. Okay, and I kind of know that answer. And
I think we all do.
So,
Yeah. So I mentioned, and I talked to Heather about this. We have a space that very easily could be converted simply. I mentioned a general store. We give coffee away. Do we need to give coffee away? We could hire, folks that live here or otherwise to be Tamron staff who would run a general store. We open it up. They can buy coffee. They can buy granola bars. They can buy, Cokes, drinks, breakfast items, something very simple. If we decide to leverage the kitchen and we decide to have somebody, cooking hamburgers or doing something in the back, that does open up food restrictions and licenses and other things that we would have to deal with. Certainly, I think we all recognize that if something like that's going to happen, we're going to want the bar to be there. We have a license in place. That license, we believe, sticks with us until it expires in November, but we're in the very early stages of doing any exploration around this. So suggestions are welcome. Feel free to forward them over. Ron, you have a question?
Well, the only question I have is liability. You've answered the question of liquor license. And I know we have insurance that's broad coverage and so forth, but should we allow a dozen homeowners to BYOB a bottle of wine or a case of wine or whatever, and there, God forbid, should be a problem? I think Taco's responsible. I think if
I don't know. I mean, how is it?
Space, and the only comment or question would be, shouldn't we get a legal opinion on this before we open that space up?
We most certainly will.
For unrestricted type of use.
We most certainly will. I mean, if somebody wants to rent that unit, rent loosely, we may have them sign an agreement with some kind of release. I don't know the answer to it. I struggle with how it's different than somebody sitting out at the north end and knocking down 2 bottles of wine and slipping and falling and cracking their head. Right? It's still Taco property. So it's something that we have to address and we need to understand the concerns with. Certainly, if we have a restaurant, whether it's owners involved or not, we need to make sure that we're protected. We've got it. If we want a liquor license, we're going to have to structure it in such a way that the Taco is not exposed to that through an LLC or some other kind of structure to solve for that. So, yes, sir.
Was the survey that was sent out, I don't remember when, about types of food that Surrey would have and everything, was that conclusive enough in order to give a direction as to what type of restaurant should be open down there, or what type of food should be? I don't know how conclusive it was.
I don't recall the detail of it. I can tell you just from feedback that people want simple. Yeah. Nobody gives a crap about candied walnuts and peaches in a salad. Right?
They want comfort food.
I can go to
They want a burger and a pizza and a hot dog and maybe a chicken sandwich. And, God bless her. She has a great display, but it didn't fit here. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think just to go a little bit further with that, since I was the one that conducted and reviewed that survey, so, we didn't really go into details with regards to the types of food, but what people were looking for was we want better food selections, not as expensive. We want a kids menu. We want lighter foods, also healthy foods I got from one individual as well. So it's, I think just like Scott said, simple is majority of what people were asking for.
Could we ask Kathy what the total number of responses she has on that survey?
Kathy, do you have any answer?
86. Yep.
Out of 379.
No, out of 295 owners.
That's about as good as I do.
Yeah.
2 quick questions.
I was going to come up here when the Yellow Carrot was still open and complain about the fact that we was carrying them for 5 or 6 months on their utilities, is my understanding. If I'm wrong, please correct me.
No, that's correct.
And wondered if you would be just as patient with me on my HOA fees. Smart aleck answer, but I'm just saying, they ain't got no skin in the game. What are you going to do to them?
No, but very legitimate point.
Rick and I was talking a while ago, and you got a family of that come up here with 3 or 4 kids and spend all day skiing. They don't want to come up here and spend $20 a person to feed them. Right.
No, I understand. I mean, that's loud and clear. You know, it was never the intent for her not to pay utilities. It was always the intent for her to do so. Again, I think we realized that she was not, we never committed to her that we would support her restaurant with ownership here and she would make money off our owners. She was very clear about her reputation and her ability to bring people in here from North County from day one. That proved false. So, yes, sir.
When does the sign come down off the front?
Well, Dave left, so I'm not sure whose responsibility is to take it down. That's part of what she's going to take is the mirror that in there says Yellow Carrot and her sign. Obviously, that needs to come off as well.
Sign on the door.
The sign on the door, the window signs, all of that is.
Well, there's the door, the entry into the lodge has a sign on it. And
right.
Then
and then the one out front.
And then the sign on the highway.
On the highway, yeah.
And Gary was going to check into that.
Yeah, we got to get rid of the CDOT sign.
The CDOT sign, the CDOT signs are going to be coming down in the next couple of weeks. Okay. Why it takes them that long to do it, I don't know.
You just have to get in their queue and they put you in the work.
Yeah, Jerry.
Can we run a bar
Can we run a bar?
in the restaurant space?
If we could figure out structurally how to minimize any risk to Taco, it'd have to be set up a separate legal structure in an LLC.
Yeah.
I don't, anything we open or anything we do with somebody that wants to sell food would be idiots not to try to figure out the bar, because that's how you're going to make your money. So,
Scott, just to read a couple of comments. What about a convenience type store in place of Yellow Carrot that the HOA runs so people don't have to run to town for bread, milk, eggs, etc.?
That was the idea of the general store that I just mentioned.
Yeah.
Now, how much of that we might sell? Those are perishable items. We got to think that through.
Yeah.
And you have to look at, and it's, when you look at those perishable items, expiration dates and, looking at, who's on property, that's, I see that it could be a positive, but I worry about how much would go to waste.
Yeah.
Also, from my understanding of the polls, most owners are in favor of a restaurant. Restaurant in combination of convenience store carryout.
Yeah. Sounds like a lot of people are on the same wavelength. I like the idea of a general store type concept, and what I think would be interesting is a combination general store type concept. Again, we got to figure out the perishable deal, but there's kids that come here that, if they could come down and buy a thing of cereal or mac and cheese, or, where parents could just come and get something easy. I think that's relatively easily done.
You could sell frozen items, frozen burritos and things like that. They could take them back to the room and microwave them.
Yeah, and I'm sure we have people here that would, be willing to, to help man that and work it for us. Anybody else have a question before I go to Ron?
I do.
Yeah, I thought I saw a hand up. Okay, it was you.
Just to kind of follow on Jerry's original question with owner usage of that space. Obviously, I don't have an issue with that. My only thought on that is, maybe we don't take stuff in December 2019. Maybe we limit it to the next 3 months, in case we do end up doing something with that space down the road that is different. Maybe we don't want to be taking reservations for, say, a Christmas party, whether it's an owner or an outside party or whatever. I just think, maybe we need first a short-term plan, here's what we're going to do for the next 3 months. Then we're not going to commit to anything after that to give us time to figure out maybe a long-term plan.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I think anything we did, if we did do anything with somebody with a restaurant, would certainly have to disclose to them that we have commitments as well. Yeah.
Two things. One, people online, you probably noticed we've lost our connection a couple of times. It's back up now. I don't know why we're losing it, but that may happen. Secondly, also, back to your point, Jerry, the three things that come to mind that are a little problematic and we'd have to set some sort of policy. Number one, keys. We don't want to be giving out keys to the restaurant and have those floating around. So that's something we'd have to work out. Number two, access to the kitchen. Who's going to get access to the kitchen if an owner wants to have a party. And then number 3, cleanup. Whoever uses it is going to be responsible for cleanup. And then what happens if they don't clean up? Those are 3 things that just come to mind.
Yeah.
Off the top.
That would all be part of an agreement that we'd have to work out. Heather and I communicated something similar this morning.
I don't
Aaron.
think that you would want to, me personally, even if somebody wanted to go with a bunch of friends and have a little get together, you wouldn't even want them to have access to that kitchen.
No, I agree with you. I think that the kitchen would be, I think, off limits to anybody who would rent it. I mean, certainly if we did a catered event and we had caterers come in, we'd have to have a separate agreement. And in those cases, I would think the caterers would be responsible for setup and cleanup and all those kind of things. Ron?
In spite of the fact that it appears that I might be dragging a camper across country and so forth, we do stop more often than not at the Holiday Inns and the Hampton Inns and so forth. And my only point in saying that is we all do that, and we've all seen and experienced the small convenience markets that all of these things are setting up with frozen foods and with non-perishable foods and so forth that are so easily prepared in the microwaves and so forth that we know we all have in every unit here. That perhaps we should do a survey of what our competition is offering. And I think what we'll find is we need very much smaller space than even moving anything into that restaurant area to create that convenience market and stay away from perishable foods and so forth, because the Hampton Inns and the Holiday Inn Expresses and so forth, they're not selling a loaf of bread or a stack of tortillas or anything like that. It's timeless stuff that probably is restocked from CBI or any delivery company, and you wouldn't even have to worry about it except to keep an eye on the freezers and so forth and pay for it from that.
Yeah, that's my exact vision. I mean, somebody spent 100 nights a year in hotels. I know Hampton's probably better than anybody. Any other comments?
Quick question.
Yeah.
What is Bob's name for the minutes?
Trivett. Trivett. Is that right? Trivett.
Thank you.
Did somebody else have a comment back there, or we good? Okay, let's move on. Old business, you want to address your relation?
Secretary, Bob. He's the secretary. Bob asked who was asking.
Yeah, he takes minutes.
He's taking the minutes. The secretary.
You're officially
taking
part of the minutes.
I have no name. I just take names.
You want to address the glacier agreement?
Sure. Gary, that one-page excerpt that I sent you this morning, put that up there. So when we executed the agreement to terminate the lease on the pool and fitness area and set up the membership arrangement with Glacier for the Valley Club memberships for Taco, one of the provisions, Article 2C, covering the facilities, and in particular the swimming pool, has this highlighted sentence that was put in along the way and became part of the agreement. I was approached because I basically spearheaded getting this agreement done with Glacier back in 2017. I was approached by Dave Harris, Glacier's attorney, and said, we're not sure how this got in there, and we would like to have that sentence stricken from the agreement so we can continue to sell alcohol at the pool and not be in violation of the agreement. So I drafted this as a proposed amendment. The board needs to approve, vote on this, to have the agreement modified, amended, to have this one sentence removed. And I'd like to consider making a motion and a vote to comply with this request that Glacier has put forth, so we can square this away.
I think we've talked about this ad nauseum, and I will make a motion that says we need to remove that language relative to Glacier's ability to sell alcohol because they're doing it anyway.
I will second.
Any discussion? Anybody care?
Can we charge them for it?
I don't think so.
Or get exchange,
They'll be happy to take our money though for a beer.
exchange for our use of the conduits to run the fiber optic.
Yeah.
Good luck with that.
Gus, did you have a question?
Yeah, can we have some limit in terms of if there's abusive behavior and all that? Or
Oh, they have their rules and regulations. There's
Yeah, trust me, they're harsh already.
so it's not.
They have already expelled somebody from that club for abusive behavior. You're looking at
Oh, okay, Diane, do you have a question?
I just have a question because I've heard it working here. Guests wanting to use that door that goes direct from Tamara.
Can we settle this first?
Yeah,
That's a different subject.
That's a different subject. So let us finish this. Any other questions about this alcohol? Okay. We have a motion. We have a second. Everybody in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Kathy and Eric?
That one was quick for me. I'm not opposed to it, Scott, but I assume this again is going to have to be recorded with the county.
Yeah, Eric, my intent is to take this and turn it over to Glacier and let them run with it, draft the amendment, turn it around to us for signature by Scott, I would assume, and then they can take care of the recording as they did with the original agreement. I want to take it out of our hands. I was just looking for approval from the board to do so because it's an agreement that we have with Glacier. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm fine on that basis, Joe. As you know, there are a couple of things in here we may need to amend sooner or later, and I just didn't want to pay that fee 4 or 5 times.
No,
You're good.
We won't be paying for anything.
My experience, it's been mostly taco owners buying the alcohol.
Probably. Yeah.
So Rod, did you get, that was what, my motion and your second, Rick?
Yes.
Okay, Rod, you get that?
Got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Ron, I will furnish this document to you as well so you can codify it in the minutes.
Great, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, Diane, you're talking about the door
I
to enter.
withdraw. It's none of my business.
Okay, yeah, my understanding is they want people to go through the front desk. Go outside and go to the front desk.
Well,
I guess people who have rental units, which I don't, these guests many times have asked me why they can't go direct. And, we tell them that you have to go around.
Yeah.
So
Glacier says it's because
y'all that have rental
Glacier says the reason for that is because they can't control access through that door.
they can have keys.
Is there a sign?
Well, what their
I
comment to that was, yeah, you have one person that opens it with the key, but who comes in behind them? And that's what they can't control.
There's merit to that argument.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be nice if that was in another part of this agreement.
Can you leave?
There are.
You can leave that way?
It sounds an alarm when you leave. You're really
Oh,
not
does it?
supposed
Okay.
to use that
Yeah.
door, so like a big buzz
Okay.
happens.
All right. Yeah,
I mean, it would be hard to school not just owners but rental guests. If you use that door, don't let anybody else come in behind you.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Next item, if there's no more discussion on that, Jerry?
Would it be at all feasible that front desk could actually open the door to do it and then?
We're not.
Just thought I'd ask.
Asked and answered.
Not even fully out, already.
All right, property transfer. This didn't make it onto the agenda, but it was something I added this morning. So as everybody is aware, we're in the process of doing a land swap for a couple of parking spaces, going to Glacier in exchange for us getting access to or getting ownership of the property on the north end of the lodge, that should almost be complete. I went down and signed those documents yesterday. They have gone back and forth and just a lot of updates to the documents and the legal descriptions on the documents to try to get it right. At this stage, Bill Grieco has to go down and sign the plat, sign the release, and I think that will be done. So that has been dragging on for close to a year, but that should be completed. And then we touched on signage and landscaping a little bit. That's still something we need to address. Obviously, we don't have a Tamarron sign out on the street. We're not happy about it. It has been a topic of discussion with the folks at Glacier. They understand it's an open item. That, as well as lodge landscaping and landscaping that needs to happen, is still an open item with them, and they are aware of that. We will continue those discussions and try to get those items rectified as well. Any questions or comments on either of those two items?
Maybe you could trade it for the liquor thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know why that's dragging, but at this stage, I will tell you they do seem to be getting more cooperative. There's still a little bit of banging our head against a cinder block, but at least we're making some movement. Okay, new business. You want to cover the insurance update?
Yeah. So nothing's changing with our insurance except that our agent, Chris McClure, is moving on. He originally indicated to me, and I actually found out by accident, that he was contemplating leaving Colorado and going back to his home state of Kansas. He has a home there, and he was going to get in with an insurance company, or insurance brokerage, where he could have more options with the different companies that he might sell, different package, different products from different underwriters and providers. And he has since even changed that, and now he is going to be staying in this area, but he's leaving American Family. And we have all of our insurance with American Family, and if those of you who might have also gotten your condo HO6 policies with Chris, American Family is sending a new agent to run that office. She's coming down from Denver. Haven't met her yet, but he's going to put me in contact with her so we can talk to her and get familiar with her. Chris assures me that nothing changes in terms of our insurance and our relationship with that office. The agency will still be in place. It's just that Chris won't be running it. It'll be somebody else. So that's a change. If any of you have your own personal policies with American Family, as I do, and you're concerned about that, you can call the office and get the straight scoop from them. But as I understand it, Chris's last day at that office was yesterday. So I expect to hear from the new agent any day now. And when that happens, the information will go up on the website, because there's an insurance information sheet on the website with name and contact information, and we'll put the new agent's name and contact information there as soon as we have it.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Other new business. Is Diane still there? Diane, you got the floor.
Diane, Embry 826, and may I approach the board, please?
You may.
Okay. This is one day, December the 16th, just off the north deck. Would you all like to pass these?
No, we trust
Yeah,
you.
we trust you.
For the record, she's got bags of cigarette butts. Anybody want to carry them? You guys can have a ball with them. I'm good.
Here's all your photos.
This picture is, if you look, you will see there's ash on the end of those butts. They were live butts when they were thrown in this area. They're everywhere. I'm asking that we go to what was level 6 restrictions, La Plata County, during the 416 fire, which means no smoking outdoors except in your car, your vehicle. And they will dispose of their butts, I hope, properly in their vehicle. We're not saying you can't smoke at all, but I walk a dog all over the property. This was only north of the lodge, where the old rickety stairs are, if anybody knows that area. A lot of it, I know some of the people whose brand this is, they're long-term renters. But I'd like to see us get hard and fast on smoking and these nasty butts. And I'd like to see you fine them $500 a pop, simply because that will scare a smoker. And I can tell you all this because I was a smoker. It took me 5 times to quit, but I was a good citizen smoker. I didn't throw my butts all over the place. So there are ways that you can even keep a pickle jar with water in a cart and put your butts in it and not throw them all over the parking lots. And that's all I have to say. Please consider it. And I'll throw
Understood.
these out if you don't want show and tell.
You can put them in the display case. Okay, I appreciate that. Diane, I know I've seen all your pictures, so I know that we have the issue. And, you know, we obviously have several months to try to address it. I don't know what the laws are relative to the, you know, stage 6 was done under extreme circumstances, and I get that. We'd like to think that everybody is a responsible smoker, but I think we know better. So we'll take it under advisement. I know we have comments out there, so yeah, Jerry.
Yeah, this was brought up once before at a board meeting, but again, I'd like to raise the issue of possibly making Tamarron smoke-free campus.
Yeah. Yeah, I just don't know how we enforce it. I don't know how you can tell an owner they can't smoke.
One condo I'm associated with, they passed it 2/3 of the vote, but they grandfathered in anybody that was smoking.
Yeah.
And then as the unit sold, then nobody could smoke in it. Worked out real smooth. It started with 60 something. They were done 1-to-1.
Totally smoke-free?
Totally smoke.
Inside and out?
Well, I'm not sure about outside.
This is Colorado, you know.
I know. Inside the units, yeah. But,
I mean,
I don't know.
I'm not a smoker. I do sympathize with the fact that we will have smokers that have an issue with that, and we have leases, and it might have to be a stage period.
There's different things to be smoked.
Oh, I understand.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not promoting either one, but I'm saying.
No, I get it.
There may be somebody that says, fine, I won't smoke tobacco, but I want my other stuff.
No.
Yeah, and I think you're going to run into it because of medical reasons that people would be utilizing marijuana for, you know, a multitude of reasons. I think then that gets to be a little dicey and catchy as to how can you tell someone if they're using it for medical reasons that they can't smoke.
Yeah.
Yep.
Agreed.
Coming from the nurse, right?
It is something that we have to take all of that into account. Yeah, you guys had some questions?
Hi, I'm Tricia Layfield, and we're to the new, my husband and I bought 334 and 701 last year.
Okay.
So I'm very new here and don't know
Well,
all the
welcome.
rules and regulations. But one thing I have a problem with is that they're not supposed to be smoking within 15 feet. Is that correct?
It's a state law. It's
building.
15, 25. I don't know
But,
what's here in
they're
Colorado.
smoking.
You know, Gary?
I mean, you're having to walk through the front door and they're smoking. I've gone out to walk my dog and they're smoking either on the deck or they're smoking that little area where you go down off the deck, go down one level and go out that back door. I pulled out, opened the door the other day, walked my dogs, and this guy's smoking a joint, which I don't care, but it was just like, you know, to me, the smokers should be more considerate. And I don't know if we have to have smoking, maybe a designated area so they're not smoking in the recycling bin or the front or.
Yeah, technically, I think there's an area just out this door, about halfway between the entrance to the lobby and the entrance here. I think, if I remember correctly. Is that? I don't know, Diane. Do you know?
Oh, yeah, there is. They've got an ashtray.
I know there's an ashtray there. Yeah.
I just wanted to bring up about the marijuana use and smoking. There's vaping, there are edibles, and there are tinctures, all of which can replace smoking of rolled marijuana cigarettes.
Everybody has their taste. It's legal here, guys. I mean, we're limited on what we can do. So, can we make it a non-smoke environment? Sure, but they're going to go out to their car, right?
Yeah, well.
But you can't make it non-smoking in
the building. I understand, and it's worth exploring. I'm not against it at all. I think we need to at least recognize and know that our ability to enforce it is going to be difficult, especially within somebody's unit. It's gonna be hard.
But if we have stage 6 and they're standing outside smoking a cigarette, as an owner, I am able to say, hey, you're not allowed to smoke outside. You can't tell if they're smoking outside if they're going to throw their butts on the ground if we don't have those kind of restrictions.
Understood.
Yes. Marijuana is legal in Colorado. However, and I spoke with the La Plata County Sheriff's Office 2 weeks ago about this. It cannot be smoked in public. And our property here, the entryways and all of that is considered public property. It's a place where the public regularly comes and goes. So that is illegal. The problem is you get felonies, you get misdemeanors. This is below a misdemeanor, and I can't remember legally what it's called. Somebody may know. It's a $200 fine, but the problem is enforcing it.
Don't go downtown tonight.
Don't go downtown tonight. So, and that's one of the problems. We get phone calls all the time in the office, or somebody comes in and complains about it. The problem is having evidence that somebody is doing it. That's the problem. And we've talked about this ad nauseum lately.
Yep.
Cell phone cameras.
If you look at the Colorado Tourism website, they do tours around smoking marijuana. So it's just the reality of what we're dealing with because we're in the state of Colorado, and we have to accept the fact that it is a law and they're able to do it. Certainly, we can restrict it and we can remind them of where they can and where they can't, but it is something that we can't change. All right, any other comments?
Can I get Tricia's last name, please?
Oh, dear.
Tricia, I'm sorry, what was your last name?
Layfield.
Layfield?
Layfield, Layfield.
Get that right?
Okay. Got it, thanks.
Thank you, Tricia. All right, any other new business? Yes, sir.
A question is probably just a selfish standpoint. My wife and I, we also live in Texas, which I think most of the people around here do, but it is nice. We go on the Durango webcam side, and we go to the Purgatory webcam side. Is there some reason we can't do that here to help? That might be a promotion, but it's also good for us owners to look up there and say, that looks pretty good.
You mean put a webcam around properties?
Maybe 2 or 3 of them someplace.
That's come up before, and I actually think it's a neat idea.
Probably a good idea.
It would have to talk to Dave to figure out where we could post them. There's probably got to be some kind of agreement or addendum or something that everybody acknowledges that, hey, we're going to stick some cameras up. Technically, if you're videotaping somebody, you're supposed to get record of it. I don't know what the legalities of it are. You're supposed to get approval.
Well, like we're advertising, we're pushing now the golf course during the summer. It'd be great for somebody to look down there. You know what the greens and all the fairways look like in Texas about July, August?
I get it.
Okay. And but somebody could look a picture and see that.
Nothing but green.
To me, that would be a marketing advantage.
Yeah. It's certainly not something in the budget, but as we get high-speed internet here, I don't know that we could have even done it until we get high-speed internet and that kind of thing. And we'd have to find appropriate placements of cameras, so to get the views that we're looking for. But I personally think it's a great idea. Yeah.
Who made this suggestion?
Larry Young.
Larry Young.
Thank you, Larry.
Gus?
Gus, I don't know if I just got a notice from Glacier that they are putting cameras up. Is there some way to coordinate or combine or do something?
It's up. I looked at it this morning.
Where's it at?
It shows like going back on about the mountain view back here behind us, or something. It almost had to be filmed or probably not on taco property, maybe on the golf course or something. And it makes sort of like a semicircle and gets over to an area, and it may be more of this is the only one I saw, and then the camera starts coming back.
Well, it might be something we can link that to our website also, so that our folks can have access to
But
that.
it's up and running.
Okay.
Or it was this morning.
Well, we certainly know who to talk to over there.
Where do you view that?
So-
On Glacier Club's website?
I just went to Glacier Club webcam. And
Where do you see it?
From their
website?
homepage, from their homepage.
I don't know if it was
Is
their
what it
website,
said
but
in the
they got
email.
like the 15
All right.
listings there, but the camera was one of them.
There's a link on our website to the Purgatory webcams. You can go there easily enough. I can easily put a link to the Glacier Club webcam.
That's a nice idea.
So
Yeah, it's right here.
I just found it.
but what we need
Gotta
to
love
do is
Google.
encourage people to go to
Yep,
the
there it
Taco
is.
website.
Tricia, do you have a
I
question?
have one more suggestion.
Okay.
Joe was mentioning some extra money. I have a great idea for it. Replace all those nasty washers and dryers.
We just did that.
We just did that.
We just did that not too long ago.
They do not dry.
They do not dry. They don't even wash that good. Sometimes you have to
Get in
wash
touch with the
them
people who
multiple
own
times.
those machines and tell them to fix their machines.
You
We
gotta
don't
go
own
through-
them.
You gotta go through an hour and a half to get towels dried.
Yeah.
Seriously.
No,
On a small
it
level.
might just be a maintenance issue. I mean,
It's probably a
some of
maintenance issue.
some of I've not had that problem in the past down in Gamble, but it might just be machine specific
It's in the
in the lodge.
wash-
Okay.
You know, I say we just did that. We had that company come in and put new machines in. What was that, Gary? Probably 3-4 years ago.
3 years ago, yeah, at least.
At least 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So, I mean, 3 years is a long time. Those things get a lot of use.
Yeah, it might just need cleaning. I mean, we don't know. So
Well, the guy who services those comes here on a pretty regular basis, and I have called him up, and when he has come here, he's checked out the machines. Sometimes there's coins stuck, there's mechanical problems, but for the most part, he said they're operating the way they're supposed to operate.
You go downtown and get something dried in about 20 minutes on the same machine.
Well, what I'd suggest is let Gary know which machines we're talking
We have.
about. Oh, you have? Okay.
He's gotten plenty of complaints, I'm sure, from everyone around here.
And I call the guy's name is Gary Johnson. I call him up, Gary.
All the time.
We got a complaint, 3rd floor, 4th floor, 2nd floor, whatever. It's usually the dryers that are not drying.
And the rinse cycle on the machines sometimes will not rinse is an issue.
Yeah, I had that happen where it didn't spin, it didn't
Doesn't
do
spin.
anything. I had to wash all over again.
And apparently, when they put in the new credit card system, for some reason the cycle get reduced almost in half.
Yes, they did.
That's one of the things, and he doesn't know why that happened.
There's no credit card down at Gamble.
It's all coins.
It's all
No,
coins.
You can got an app on your phone.
Oh, it's an app?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's,
Okay.
It works pretty good.
That's a nice enhancement, but I noticed
But it
the same
saved me
thing that Gary just said.
running to town yesterday to get quarters. Okay.
Yeah, that started
yeah, they did
5 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that.
Something like that.
Well, again, I mean, you guys sound like you already got the channels open. We just need to continue to talk to them about, maintaining them and seeing what we can do. They're not that old. I don't know what shelf life is on those silly things, but
Commercially, I would imagine a year.
a year. Yeah, but
On a
commercially,
commercial standpoint, these things are constantly used.
during certain times of the season, I would agree. But but again, I don't know. I'm not here, so.
You better get up at 4 o'clock in the morning on Sunday to get to use it on 3 here in the lodge.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's very popular.
Okay. You're here. I've never had to wait for a washing machine here, but that's maybe just I've gotten lucky. But again, you guys are here, and again, we need to report it. And we've got they're vendor-owned systems or vendor-owned
We could
machines.
turn
so we have to
the restaurant into a high-speed
laundromat. We'll put a dry cleaner and a laundromat in. All right.
Probably be a moneymaker.
It's not a bad idea.
I know golf pros that use our machines here because downtown it's 3 times as much money. So they love our machines for the cost, but they just do not try.
All right. Any other new business? All All right, so if no new business, I don't believe we have anything else to cover. So as I mentioned early on, my plan was to try to get through the agenda this morning so we didn't have to have everybody come back. We will have to close out after executive session, which we will break for now. I don't believe there's any activity in executive session that will require a vote, so I think we will just be coming back to adjourn. You all are welcome to come back in here. I would guess we will be done at 1 o'clock, executive session probably, give or take, depending on how long it takes to get through everything. So thanks everybody for coming. Appreciate your involvement. Jerry?
I just wanted to applaud the work that you guys are doing, and Kathy. I think you're doing really good stuff.
Thanks. I appreciate it, Jerry. You've been part of it before. You know the program.
I'll email you the policy. Yeah. Now, it's also on the website. If you go on the HOA documents page, the left-hand column, I think it's the first, it'll say contractor policy and scope of work. I can print it out, I can email it to you. If you want to look at it right away, that's where it is.
Okay,
That'd
be awesome.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I've not heard any complaints.
Okay.
Okay, snap, Gary.
Yeah, I don't want to lose that view, Kathy.
What's that?
This is Eric. I don't want to lose that view behind stuff.
I know,
Yeah,
it's beautiful.
I'm sitting here watching.
You're going to lose it right now.
Well, it's raining cats and dogs here. I'm glad it's not snow.
See y'all in a little bit.
Okay, bye.
That's why I had to start all taking off.